for everyone on this call, unless some of my Hawaii folks are there. So good morning to y'all. I really appreciate you being here. Before I go into intros, with most things that are done that are great or cool, there's always a funny story behind it. And so the genesis of why we're on the call, aside from the obvious that we're supporting our vice president to be the 47th commander in chief, is that I got an email, and some other folks on this call got an email from a buddy of ours, Roger Miso, Thursday evening, asking us if we were going to do our own call, just like the brothers and sisters had done, and just like the white women had done, and so forth. And so I emailed them back real quick and said, yeah, sure, we're just waiting for the infrastructure to get stood up. And then I hit send. And then I realized that's not who he was talking about, one of these big, massive calls. But I was talking about the kitchen cabinet for the campaign, and the behind the scenes work that you have to do to help candidates be able to win. And so as soon as I hit send and had that thought, I'm like, well, I can't go back and tell them no. So I shot Naveed a text. And for those who don't know Naveed, he's the political director for Common Defense, has been in this position for a very long time, has done great work throughout this country and in the Commonwealth of Virginia, where he began, helping get good Democrats elected to office, especially those who are veterans, military spouses, family members, and some folks who used to work in some of our alphabet agencies. And so I asked Naveed, do you guys have the infrastructure to do one of these massive calls? And Naveed's like, yeah, we got this. I'm like, cool. So then I kept hanging out with my wife, went to bed, woke up the next morning, and then I called Dan Coombs. And I don't know what Dan's title is, but Dan does the stuff to help Patrick be Patrick, right? Working at Taking the Hill. Again, just like Common Defense, helping getting good Democrats and our friends and veterans and so forth elected to office, and so supporting people across the country, primarily in congressional and senatorial elections. So Dan and I, we kicked some ideas back and forth. He pulled Max in, of course, because Max is that dude who's like really good E4s, E5s who just get grimy and dirty and they get the work done. And you look at it, it's like, how did this kid pull the track off by himself? Well, he did. So we pat him on the back and we say thank you. And so a lot of people are like, well, how'd you get West real quick? Got West because of relationships. Patrick will go into that, as we get deeper in the call. But we were able, because of our relationships, everyone here has been doing this work, me since 08, Patrick and other folks since friggin' 2004. And some of y'all who are on this call, I know from the work you guys have done since before I was born, and God bless you for laying that groundwork. So my formal title, I am the chair of the DNC's Veterans and Military Families Council. It's a whole lot more work than it is glorious, but I love the work that we do in supporting good causes and good people. With me on the call, too, whose name I have not yet mentioned, is my very good friend and collaborator and co-chair, Sue Hoppin. Sue is one of the military spouse subject matter experts, especially in the areas of employment, business, entrepreneurship, etc. She's helped craft a lot of legislation. Lack of going into more detail on that, advocating on our behalves, empowering military spouses to be business leaders, and also expressing to our elected officials how important it is to fully support, resource that population of our military community, who, for all intents and purposes, creates that environment for those of us who are the active duty personnel to do the jobs that we do in defense of our country. And last but not least, I believe the only person I've not yet mentioned is Masherie Dunbar. Masherie is one of my right hands. So if I was like one of the Hindu gods that had multiple right hands, Masherie's one of them. She's going to give her title later, but she's very active in both Black veteran issues, quote unquote, as well as LGBTQ. A lot of work with the mayor's office in DC, and helping folks like myself and Patrick and Sue and Naveed and Dan and Vote Vets and other groups out there like that. Again, getting good Democrats, good Democratic veterans elected to office. So from there, I'm going to kick it over to Dan, because Dan has a whole lot to say.
Hey y'all, what's going on? Nice to see you. Thanks, Duran. Great to be with everybody. Hey, I think the best part of what we're trying to do here is really support the Vice President Kamala Harris become the next president of the United States, which is absolutely positively what we're here to do today. We are also here to raise a little bit of money, and we're also here to talk to one another about great things that we're all trying to do. So I always want to just start with my why. So I joined the military because of the events of 9/11, and then I support any person that's going to run for office that isn't supportive of January 6th. That was my breaking point, my line in the sand. So here I am today trying to support what we're going to do next. And I really appreciate, Teron, all the support you've given us. And I'm going to jump over to Sue and be able to introduce herself, if you don't mind.
Thanks, Dan and Tyrone. Thank you for the kind words, Tyrone. And it's just really gratifying for me to see so many military families joining us on this call because I know the veterans have carried the water for so long. And so I'm just really gratified to see families here because I know that for military families, getting politically engaged is a little bit outside of our comfort zone, right? But the stakes are just too high with this election. I mean, we just can't stay on the sidelines anymore. As personally, as an Asian American woman, as an immigrant, and the spouse of a retired airman, and the mother of a gay son, the idea of a Trump Vance administration terrifies me. Like many of you, I remember the first Trump administration. Do you remember like we would wake up every morning wondering what he might have done or disassembled while we were asleep? I know I felt incredibly helpless and hopeless watching him attack and dismantle government policies and protections that I value. And I imagine that many of you felt the same way. I mean, during the pandemic, the violence toward the API community, that was incited by a sitting president, the vitriol towards immigrants, the disrespect toward our military and Gold Star families, as well as the hatred toward the LGBTQ plus community were all incredibly unsettling to me. We can't go back to this nightmare. And actually, we don't have to because we have Kamala Harris, right? We have hope. On one side, we have fear, intimidation, stripping rights from our most vulnerable populations, rolling back women's rights. And on the other side, we have hope, respect, engagement, and inclusion, as well as a record of wins for the military community that includes the PACT Act, a commitment to ending veteran homelessness, securing jobs for our veterans and military spouses, removing the barriers to healthcare, mental health care, supporting veterans and caregivers. I mean, the choice to me is clear. And this election, it's not just about Republicans versus Democrats. I don't think it's about Republicans versus Democrats at all. I think it's about saving our democracy and protecting our way of life versus descending into fascism. And I don't say that lightly. I'm from Laos and I also lived in Haiti. So I come from two countries that have experienced incredible turmoil. So trust me, I know this is the difference between saving our way of life and descending into fascism. More than anyone else, veterans and military families understand the assignment and we're here for it because we know the stakes have never been any higher. We have a role to play in making sure that Kamala Harris is elected the next president of the United States. I know a lot of you are new to activism and you may not be sure where to get started, but have no fear. We have you covered. The DNC Veterans and Military Families Council has a state director and infrastructure in place in almost every single state and overseas. You definitely don't have to go it alone. We absolutely have your back. So if you leave with anything, I hope the big takeaway for you is that if we all commit to doing one small thing over the next 100 days leading to the election, we absolutely can't lose. So I want to make sure that I leave you with some tangible takeaways. Otherwise, why are you here, right? So what can you do over the next 100 days to help mobilize our community and save our democracy? I just came up with 5 simple recommendations for your consideration. I know my colleagues are going to give you so many more, but here's some simple ones. Donate what you can. Every dollar counts, right? And every contribution is important. Even better yet, set up a recurring donation to send a strong message of support. Connect your state DNC Veterans and Military Family Council. You'll hear from Charlie Conrad from Virginia in a little bit, and he'll tell you more about this. But this is the way you stay up to date on local events and information supporting the campaign. Register to vote if you haven't already. This is really key. We all need to do this. Request that absentee ballot if you need to, and help others do the same. And make sure you know the deadlines so you don't miss them. If you need a target date to work towards, September 17th, 2025 has been designated as voter registration day, so use that as your target. Finally, consider volunteering as a poll worker, right? We can all do a little something. Let's just leave it all in the field so that we know that we've done all we can to protect our democracy, and let's get the right candidate elected. It's an honor to be fighting alongside each and every one of you, and I look forward to the next 100 days. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks so much.
Great job, Sue. Naveed, go ahead.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Sue. Hey, everybody. Good evening. My name is Naveed Shah. I'm an Army veteran and the political director of Common Defense. It's really my honor to welcome you all here this evening. Really excited about this. I know we're going to have thousands of people joining us, veterans, military family members, and supporters from across the country, which is just a testament to the strength and unity of our community. Just a little bit about Common Defense, and we're proud to host this call, joined by so many of our fellow veterans from different organizations. Common Defense is a grassroots organization of progressive veterans. We were founded to unite veterans and military families against the threats posed by Donald Trump and his administration. In 2016, we launched Veterans Against Trump with a protest of just a few veterans in front of Trump Tower. And since then, we've been mobilizing thousands of veterans across the country to take a stand against all of his divisive and dangerous agendas. Today, we continue to fight for justice, peace, and the well-being of all Americans, standing strong in our mission to protect democracy. While our journey began with a shared commitment to defend the freedoms we fought for against that rising tide of hate that was the Trump campaign, now we're coming together again because we're still facing these unprecedented threats because the MAGA movement is growing, it's not going away, and we only have 100 days between now and Election Day to get the word out and make sure that Kamala Harris becomes the next president of the United States. She's got the smarts, the conviction, everything needed to uphold our rights and ensure every vote counts. That's why this election is crucial for veterans. This election is particularly important because Kamala Harris is not just a leader, she's a champion for our community. She's been consistently advocating for expanding VA benefits, housing assistance for veterans and military families, and fixing other than honorable discharges. Vice President Harris understands the unique challenges we face and is committed to fighting for us every step of the way. She won't drag us into any new forever wars. She has our backs. She would never call veterans suckers or losers or disrespect the military. So we know we have to have her back too, right? And what can you do to help? Just like Sue said, with just 100 days to go to defeat Trump and elect her to be the 47th president of the United States, you can just join our movement today. If you haven't already, join Vets for Harris now at vetsforharris.org to connect with fellow veterans and military families to take action today. You can stay informed. Follow us all on social media and keep up with the latest news and events that we have going on, just like this one. Thanks again for you all for being here. And volunteer, because volunteers are sorely needed. But we know in just the past week, the campaign has recruited thousands of new volunteers, many of them for their first time ever going out and knocking on doors or making phone calls to their community. That's an easy way that you can jump in and help out right now. And you can donate. We're going to put the donate link in the chat throughout the night. Make sure you're contributing and helping us reach our goal to amplify our message. Every little bit, every dollar, every penny helps. And most importantly, you can share your story, inspire others by sharing why you support Vice President Harris and her commitment. So what you can do is, if you can tweet, post on Facebook or Instagram a picture of yourself in uniform from back in the day, or maybe you have some veteran military gear that you can wear, and use the hashtag Vets for Harris or Military Families for Harris, and that way we can help amplify that message for everybody. Your voice matters. Your support is crucial in this fight. Together, we can ensure that veterans' voices are heard loud and clear. Kamala Harris understands the true meaning of service and is committed to promoting peace and justice every step of the way. So thank you all for joining us today and for your unwavering commitment to defending our democracy. Let's honor our service by supporting Vice President Harris to the finish line. Together, we can make a difference and support a leader who truly cares about our community.
Nice job, Naveed. Way to go. All right, up next is Masherie Dunbar.
Hey, everyone. Thanks, Dan. In addition to being Tyrone's, one of Tyrone's right hands, I'm also an independent political and advocacy consultant, along with nonprofit management. And I recently received an award from the city of Philadelphia for my advocacy efforts. So shout out to you, Philly. Presently, I am COO of Black Veterans Project, where we focus on racial and social equity and reparative justice for Black veterans. I am the only veteran currently appointed to the Washington, D.C. Mayor's Advisory Committee on LGBTQ Affairs, and I sit on the board of the Veteran Multi-Service Center, an organization working to reduce housing insecurities and death by suicide among veterans in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey. So check out those organizations when you get a chance. But I've been in the advocacy space and lobbying space for military families and veterans for over a decade. My work has spanned from Alaska to Texas, from California all the way up and down the East Coast. In every agency and organization I've been a part of, I've worked hard to ensure that all voices of veterans are being heard. Because what we know is that Black and Brown veterans, and especially at the intersections of queer and varying abilities, are often not at the table. During the Biden administration and under the appointment of Secretary McDonough, we finally saw the first ever LGBTQ plus liaison present at VA Center for Minority Veterans. We saw a change in VA slogan to be inclusive of all those who served, their caregivers and families. We even saw the first ever town hall and several others that followed that were specific to conversations around the LGBTQIA plus veteran community. However, we also saw that that position, the LGBTQ liaison, was only temporary. It's now an additional duty and more of a support and guidance offer than permanent representation. And that's a challenge. The justification seems to be that we have LGBTQ liaisons at VA medical centers that veterans can call when they need additional support. But those liaison positions are additional duty taskings. The result is that many of the LGBTQ veterans still feel like they have no one to support them. And it leaves many advocates and lobbyists like myself feeling as if there's no one to trust within VA or within the administration. So we're working hard to continue to change that narrative. But the challenge without having representation at the table means that it's harder to have those conversations. So all of us are in the room trying to continue to make sure that we have all the representation at the table that's warranted. We've also seen a promise to have discharge upgrades for those whose careers were unfairly cut short due to an unjust law. At present, we've only seen about 2,000 of those upgrades that can be accounted for because those were the easy ones. LGBTQ plus veterans are counting on Kamala Harris to continue the work of the Biden administration to ensure that earned benefits are received and LGBTQ veterans have a permanent place at the table at the VA Center for Minority Veterans. One thing that we also have to discuss when we're talking about the LGBTQIA plus community is the divide that we know that exists between Caucasian and our Black and Brown communities. In acknowledgement of the historical and present racial tensions, we do have to say that those aren't necessarily the things that are dividing us. Things like music and culture and food have us occupying different spaces and often needing different resources. Like I said earlier, I'm here working with an incredible team to ensure that all of our voices are heard, Black, Brown, Caucasian, whatever your ability or persuasion. We know that Vice President Harris understands how much representation matters, and we believe in her ability to ensure that we are heard, we are considered, we are valued, and we are at the table. And we know that she will continue to build upon the work of the Biden administration. This win, our democracy, our very lives depend on Kamala Harris being our next president. So please register to vote if you haven't. Make sure your friends understand the importance of showing up to vote, voting specifically for Kamala Harris for president. Donate, volunteer, and as Naveed said, consider sharing your story. Most of us swore an oath once, but if America has ever needed you, that time is now. And I believe I now get the pleasure of introducing Richard Brookshire. Naveed, is he next on the? He's next on the docket.
Yep.
He's on deck.
All right. So I will go ahead and introduce Richard Brookshire. Richard is a former U.S. Army combat medic and veteran of the war in Afghanistan. He is also the co-founder and CEO of Black Veterans Project. He's a multi-hyphenate storyteller and communication strategist, building national campaigns to advance social and economic justice, racial equity, equal opportunity, and reparative justice. Richard, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction, and I'm incredibly proud to be here today in full support of Kamala Harris for president. Over the last 5 years, Black Veterans Project has been stewarding a national case for reparations for Black veterans and their families. Actually, 2 days ago, we celebrated the 76th anniversary since our military was desegregated. And in that time, from World War II through Vietnam and today, stark racial disparities in access to veterans' benefits has persisted, unfortunately, from widespread denials to VA home loans, which proliferated around World War II and still continue today, evidenced by recent findings by a CNN report on Navy Federal Credit Union, disproportionate levels of dishonorable discharges, that Black vets are still twice as likely to leave the military with a dishonorable or other than honorable discharge, locking them out of their benefits, and inequities in disability compensation, which has been a primary focus of so much of our work. Collectively, tens of billions of dollars in resources and support have been stripped from Black veterans and their families over these decades, and it's time to contend with that history in an honest way. At a time when our nation's true history is being challenged and equal opportunity is also being undermined, at from everything from military academies to the deconstruction of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at the DoD and even at the VA that took decades to thoughtfully construct and implement. It's a really terrifying time, not just for Black vets, but for so many who live at the intersections. Kamala Harris is the leader we need to ensure we don't turn back the clock. Our national security also depends on the ability to harness our diversity as a strength. The MilVet community also just has a great responsibility in this election, not just to ensure that Vice President Harris secures a presidential victory, but we have a duty to lead this nation in righting these historical injustices. The Biden-Harris administration has made great strides in recent years. They renamed military installations that venerated the Confederacy for hundreds of years, pardoning the 24th Infantry and more recently the Port Chicago 50. If you don't know those stories, please Google them. They extending a congressional gold medals to Black units that were long overdue. They also passed legislation that very much helped for us to, for the first time in history, look at inequities by the numbers through VA data and got our FOIA, helped to get our FOIA requests fulfilled. But legislation like the GI Bill Restoration Act, again, if you don't know it, please Google it, remain a huge opportunity to reckon with how racism has shaped access to veterans benefits for generations. As important, protecting and increasing the participation of Black entrepreneurs engaging in Department of Defense and Veteran Affairs contracting as a mechanism to building Black wealth and tackling the Black wealth gap is deeply imperative. Fortifying these diversity, equity, and inclusion programs across the DoD and VA are as pillars for really protecting our democracy, ultimately protects all who serve and are just critical work that remains to be done, especially in light of the threat of a Trump-Vance presidency. Our community must align to support the landmark case Monk v. United States. Also, if you don't know, please look at that. And I really hope that you guys just come out for Harris full force. I know that we're going to be engaging the folks across our community and beyond. We have our community is also deeply intersectional, talking to everyone from immigrant veterans to LGBTQ veterans to women vets and everyone in between. And we're just really grateful to have the opportunity to speak today. And I'm thrilled to be supporting Kamala Harris for president. So thank you for the time.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Richard. Really appreciate it. It's my pleasure and my honor to introduce my good friend, Patrick J. Murphy. Patrick's career, if you don't know this, is one of service and it's one of leadership. He was the first post 9/11 candidate elected to Congress in Pennsylvania, won the 32nd Undersecretary of the Army, and my very, very good friend and co-founder or founder of Taking the Hill, who's sponsoring this event. Patrick Murphy, go ahead.
Hey, Dan Cooks, thank you so much. It is great to be with everybody and just to be in the company of so many of my personal heroes and fellow patriots. It's just awesome. So, Dan, thanks so much for co-hosting this, Mashri for co-hosting this, and Tehran and Sue for your continued leadership with the DNC, with the veterans and military families, and organizing this call. So just thank you so much, everybody. I do want to say I appreciate it, Dan Coons, talking about his why. I know for all of us it's different, and I love the fact that there are so many new folks on this call. I know we have over 1,700 folks. A lot I've never met, but just so you know, as Dan mentioned, I was the first Iraq War veteran elected to Congress. Had the honor to serve and co-chair President Obama's campaign, and then be the 32nd Undersecretary of the Army, the number 2 in the Army, and just to be with all of you in such a righteous cause is just it's a personal honor. So thanks for taking your time out on a Sunday to be here. When you run campaigns, you got to talk about why the other person should be fired, but also why the other person should be hired. Naveed and others already mentioned, the former president, his comments about our brothers and sisters, calling them losers and suckers. We know what he's done against true patriots like John McCain. I was just in Arizona doing, working veterans military families for Kamala Harris and, talking about why Arizona is so important because it's one of those 7 battleground states that we got to win. And I think the why for all of us, why, frankly, he was fired in the first place and why he should be fired again is pretty clear. But also why Kamala Harris should be hired. Yes, she will do a phenomenal job as the 47th Commander in Chief. But do not forget that just like it was Obama, Biden as a team, it's been Biden, Harris as a team. And they have been there for us as veterans every step of the way. The PACT Act specifically has been one of the most consequential pieces of legislation for our brother and sister veterans. And by the way, it's not just about toxic exposure. It's about new infrastructure in places like Pennsylvania, where they're about to build, they do an MOU to build a new VA hospital in Philadelphia. Why is that important? It's important because an average private hospital is 16 years of age. Our brothers and sister veterans deserve world-class healthcare. The fact our average VA hospitals are over 56 years old, including the one in Philadelphia. So, they put their money where their mouth is. They have worked it time and time again, including Sec VA, DepSec VA, the whole team over there, and alumni that, have left the VA and are now on this call. So just want to say thank you about that. And also, when people talk about, if they try to say negative stuff, I'm like, Kamala Harris has kept our family safe as an assistant DA, as a DA, as Attorney General, as a U.S. Senator, as the Vice President. She has been there keeping our family safe time and time again. And that's why she is abundantly qualified to be our Commander-in-Chief. So I just want to, mention that. And I will say that I think many of us in this call love the fact that we know at our heart of hearts, it is time for a new generation of leaders. She fits that bill. And I know she has an incredibly important, probably the most important decision she's going to make in this campaign when we talk about the deep stakes and who that might be. And I think a lot of us in this call are hoping it's a veteran, and we won't go there right now. But when we talk about a new generation of leaders, no one fits that bill more than the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. Wes Moore, we all look about our why, right? And my why originally getting political, public service was, I lost 19 of my fellow paratroopers in Iraq in the invasion. Wes Moore has shown his why time and time again. We served in the 82nd Airborne Division together. I was in Iraq. He was in Afghanistan. And he has committed his life to making life better for our brother and sister veterans, for our communities, for our country, and the world. And so, Wes Moore, I love the fact that not just is he the first, Black governor of Maryland, but the fact that we have an Army veteran running the state of Maryland in the Navy town, the capital of Maryland, Annapolis, is a personal distinction. And when I interviewed him for Fox News, and I said to him, I said, hey, I know you have to be a governor of everybody, but is it go Army, beat Navy, or is it, go Navy, beat Army because you're here? And to a man, to the public, he was like, I am go Army, beat Navy. And so we all love Wes Moore. So with no further ado, to make sure we're on target, it is my honor to introduce to you the governor of Maryland, a great American, a patriot, and a fellow All-American, Wes Moore. Governor, take it away.
God bless you, brother. All the way, all the way.
Airborne.
Airborne. Good afternoon, everybody. It is an absolute joy to be here, and my brother in arms and my brother in life, Patrick. I just want to say how much we appreciate you and love you, man. You set such a high bar for each and every one of us, and I would say I would follow you anywhere, brother. So God bless you. And yes, being governor in Maryland is difficult sometimes as an Army guy. But I always say, listen, I love the Navy on 364 days of the year. It's just that one day that I ask for my reprieve. But it is an absolute joy to be with each and every one of you. And I also want to extend just deep thankfulness, Sue, Tehran, and Dan, and just the whole team, everybody within the Harris campaign. Just want to say how much we appreciate you, and let you know that we've got your back. You all have always had ours. You've had the backs of us as veterans. You've had the backs of our family members. And when we say that, we do not take that lightly. When you have our word, you have our word. And I'm telling you, you will not find a more faithful group of people and patriots and people who are ready to get to work than this group that we're looking at right here. And I'm really grateful because this is a group that understands not just what loyalty means. This is a group that understands what patriotism means. Patrick's right. I first joined the Army when I was 17 years old. I wasn't old enough to join the Army because I was too young at the time. My mother had to sign the paperwork for me. But as Patrick knows, after my teenage years, my mother would sign whatever paperwork that the Army put in front of her, because this was something that literally helped to change my life. It helped to change the trajectory of my life, and it taught me some core basic values that I now hold dear, and I will always hold dear in everything that I do. And frankly, people even throughout the state of Maryland are seeing that there are certain values that we learn that we take seriously. There are certain values like being mission first and people always. There are certain values that we learn like leave no one behind. That there are certain values that we learn like making sure you are taking care of the people to your left and to your right, and making sure that when you say something, you mean it and you honor it. That your word is your bond. That is your obligation. And I can tell you that we have had a chance to see that this obligation is taken seriously by this administration, by the Biden-Harris administration. And let's be clear, when we talk about the Biden-Harris administration, the reason we say that is because the vice president has been a core partner throughout this entire time. She has been the partner to the president who have gotten these remarkable things done. And when we talk about the things like, the PACT Act, and again, I cannot be more clear. The reason that we speak with such passion about the PACT Act is because we know the people who have benefited from it. And it's because we know the people who were being hurt until the PACT Act was actually there and complete. And that was not easy. It took advocacy. It took push. It took political capital. It took people who are even on this Zoom right now who are willing to go down, and for all of us to go down and testify, all of us to go down and march, all of us go down to meet with our representatives to make sure this thing got done. And it was imperative that we got it done because we had huge portions of our community that were not being seen. When we talk about the PACT Act, we're talking about the single largest expansion of veteran benefits in decades, one of the most extraordinary pieces of bipartisan legislation in American history, because it ensures that veterans can now file disability claims for exposure to toxins from burn pits that they did not even realize when we were deployed that we were being exposed to. And it was the Biden-Harris administration that got it done, that built the coalition, that whipped the votes, and made sure that our brothers and sisters were going to be seen. It was the Biden-Harris administration who worked in partnership with all of our local jurisdictions. I'm proud of the fact that not only am I a deeply proud military veteran, but also as one of this country's chief executives, state chief executives, that the things we're able to get done on the state level for veterans and for their family members have been because we've done them in partnership with the Biden-Harris administration. That in our first 18 months here just in the state of Maryland, we made Maryland the first state in this country that now has a pathway for free dental care and health care for members of our National Guard, because it is absolutely unacceptable that someone is willing to put on the flag of this country on their shoulder and they cannot get dental care. Do you know who we did that in partnership with? The Biden-Harris administration. That we were able in the state of Maryland to provide the largest tax cut for younger veterans in 2 generations in the state of Maryland. Do you know who did that in partnership? The Biden-Harris administration. That we've been able to actually make a cutout to provide supports for the spouses of members of our military veterans. The reason that became important is because when people looked at the normal resumes of a military spouse and they see a person has moved around a lot, the first thing a lot of employers make, first assumption they make is that, well, they must not be able to keep a job. No, it's because they're serving their families. So we made sure that when they're putting together their applications for employment, that they understand the situations that our military spouses are taking on, and they can have elements of preferential hiring. Do you know who we did that in partnership with? The Biden-Harris administration. This is an administration who sees us. This is an administration who fights for us. And Vice President Harris will be a president who keeps her word and keeps her promise and continues to put us and our families at the forefront. She has had our back. We will have hers. And we know what is at stake. We know so much of this conversation, and there are basic freedoms that we were willing to put our lives on the line for. There are basic freedoms that we were willing to say that we are willing to give everything if it means that people have a right to have basic freedoms that should be God-given. that when we talk about the things that are on the line right now, and when we talk about, again, basic freedoms, like a freedom to understand that that women should have reproductive health and reproductive rights, and that we should not have judges and lawyers and politicians getting involved in that conversation. Basic freedoms like people's histories should be understood and lifted up and not banned. Basic histories, basic freedoms, like we know that we should have an opportunity to have economic growth and economic development. Basic freedoms, like people should be free to walk around their neighborhoods in safety, that people should be able to go into their homes of worship without worried about being killed. Basic freedoms like our children should know that we should not have weapons of warfare that could take them down. Weapons we were trained on, but that should not find places in our neighborhoods. This is the kind of freedom that our vice president's going to fight for as the next president of the United States. Now, we know this is not going to be easy. We know this race is not going to be simple, but the truth is none of us ever signed up for easy. None of us signed up for simple. The reason that we are all in this Zoom is because we understand what it means to choose tough. We understand what it means to go earn it. We understand what it means to say everything earned, nothing given. We understand what it means to go and earn our victories. Well, team, we're going to have to earn this one. This will not be simple. This will be choppy. This will be bumpy. This will be complicated. We are going to have to work through so much misinformation. We are going to have to work through so many attacks. We are going to have to work through so many lies. We are going to have to work through someone who will literally stop at nothing to make sure that he maintains power. He is worried about his future. He is worried about his freedom. But we're riding for somebody who's worried about our futures and our freedoms. This work will not be easy. Nothing we've ever done is. But that victory is going to be sweet because we know that in this moment, we've got a chance to do something historic and we've got a chance to do something legendary. That in this moment, we have a chance to pay true homage to those who came before us and those who are willing to put up the fights, those who are willing to advocate and fight on our behalf, those who are willing to put themselves on the lines to make sure that we could actually have a new future that was going to be honored. Now's our time to continue our service. Now's our time to keep raising our hands. And I can tell you, this campaign could not have a greater set of hard chargers than this group right here. We will earn the victory. We will bring home this W. We're going to go out there and earn it. And then in November, people will remember who got this thing done. And so I am grateful to be your brother in arms. I'm grateful to say that I had the honor of wearing the same uniform as so many of you. I'm grateful for the fact that we had a chance to train together and sweat together and bleed together. I'm grateful for the fact that all of you, each and every one of you, for the rest of my life, you will be my brothers and sisters. I'll fight for you always. And I'm thankful that together, we're going to make sure we fight to make sure that Vice President Kamala Harris becomes the next president of the United States, and the future, the hopeful future that she's speaking about, is one that we can tell future generations that we help preserve. So God bless y'all. Let's go earn it. And let's go make it happen. Patrick, my brother, all the way. Back to you, man.
Love you, Wes. Airborne Wes. And listen, I know they say victors have 1,000 fathers. We in Pennsylvania like to say that you're a graduate of Valley Forge Military Academy, Fort Johns Hopkins, etc. But always crushing it. We love you. Thank you so much. I think we're all going to drop off. There's thousands and thousands on this call. We're going to drop off, go run through a wall for you and for Kamala Harris, their next 47th Commander-in-Chief. So thank you. Keep crushing it, my friend.
Oh, God bless y'all.
Airborne.
Airborne, all the way.
Thanks so much, Patrick. Great to see you on the call. Governor Moore, thank you for such powerful, powerful words. We really appreciate you both being here and being in full support of VP Harris for president. It is now my pleasure, my honor to introduce my friend and my colleague in the fight, especially as it intersects with LGBTQ veterans, Major General Tammy Smith. Major General Smith served 35 years in the Army, and she understands that military readiness is built on the backs of service members and their families. Since her retirement in 2021, she's been an outspoken advocate for veterans and especially with the LGBTQ community. Tammy, please, it's my pleasure.
Thanks, Bashery. And man, following the keynote speaker is a hard role, but I'll do my best. I want to just start with a big thank you to the veterans and the military family members who've joined this call today. I know when I retired in 21, I struggled in the same way I suspect that many of you are struggling after leaving service. It's that question like, who am I as a veteran? I knew who I was as a soldier. Or as my wife has personally experienced, who am I without my military spouse, teammates, and battle buddies? I was commissioned by President Reagan and retired by President Biden, and I served each commander-in-chief in between. And while I didn't always agree with personally on platforms and policy, I proudly accepted my role to support and defend the Constitution. It was my utmost duty. Wearing civilian clothes, I struggled with where I fit in, especially on political conversations, having been indoctrinated by the very military that I love, that my voice in the public square should always remain nonpartisan. But I've seen things in the public square that are just plain wrong, that take our country backwards. I've witnessed a disrespect for character, an unwillingness to compromise, a contempt for tradition, decency, and the decorum we should expect from our elected officials. I've wanted to speak out about this, and maybe you wanted to also. I've hesitated because of my military training. But the conclusion I came to this weekend is that, and I'm going to tell you how I got there, is that values and responsible government and the rule of law, none of that is partisan. It's a conversation about the direction of our country. So I gave myself permission today to rally for Vice President Kamala Harris because, in her own words, one campaign is focused on the future and one campaign is focused on the past. I want to be focused on the future. I am not going back. I say I gave myself permission, but it was actually a president and a four-star general who showed me how to step into my veteran power today. First, the president. During President Biden's speech explaining why he chose to pass the torch to the next generation, he asked, does character in public office still matter? And I sat straight up in my chair like he was talking to me, and I said out loud to Tracy, it matters most. And the president's remarks made me recall a letter written by Army General Wainwright to service members discharged at the end of World War II. He instructed veterans that it's our responsibility to lead our communities when we take off the uniform, because we understand better than most citizens what happens when a nation accepts hate and intolerance and doesn't believe all citizens are equal. Wainwright said, choose your leaders wisely and to make your voice be heard for the rights of all people. So please hear my voice. I'm excited about the skills, experience, and character that Vice President Harris will bring when she carries her box of personal items out of the VP office and sets it down in the Oval Office. We aren't just electing a president, we're electing an administration. I want our entire US government to focus on the future and to demand, among each other, character in public office. As a LGBTQ plus advocate, I often remind people that visibility matters. We change lives when we show up as our authentic selves. I'm accepting my responsibility to show up as a veteran, visible in the community, demanding character, the rule of law, and accountability of our elected officials. Veterans not only belong in these conversations, we must lead in these conversations because our views carry weight, because of our experiences. So educate yourself on the issues exhibit the moral courage to speak up. Step out of your comfort zone like I've attempted to do today, because these aren't ordinary times. These times need you. And if you feel like you need someone to give you permission to do this in the public square, just like that president, that 4-star gave me permission, I am giving you permission. It's with zero hesitation that I say Kamala Harris will be a president of character who leads us into a future aligned with the values that military veterans and families hold dear. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks so much, Tammy. Your nervousness does not show through. That is a great rallying call and a great call to action. I hope everyone listens to you. I mean, I see the donations coming in. I'm tracking the chats. I'm tracking the Q&A. And I hope you all know that we will get to every single one of your questions. So do not lose faith. And a lot of you have asked for how to get in touch with the DNC Veterans and Military Family Council. Tyrone is going to be sending information out to every single person who's registered for this call. So we are listening to you. We are reading all the questions. So keep populating them. At this point in time, it's my honor and privilege to introduce my dear friend, Susie Schwartz. And she's got a little bit of humility going on because she said to introduce her as just a proud military spouse who chose to continue serving and is dedicated to kindness and decency. I won't knock you out, Susie, but you might want to tell them who you are.
Okay, my turn. Susie Schwartz. I am the spouse of a retired general officer who was served as the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. And I think my message may be a little bit different today. You ready? For years, I had mentored spouses about being kind. And yep, I'm still going to do that. I'm still going to tell spouses out there to be kind. But this is what I'm going to ask all of you today. Spouses, veterans, all of you. While you're being kind, be fierce and be fearless. Step out of that comfort zone. And I'm going to tell you a little story about why I feel so passionate about this. I chose last cycle to be involved, and boy, I was scared to death. I did 2 giant Facebook Live events. And when I got off the first one, I'm telling you, I felt thrilled, excited, proud. I was nervous while it was happening, but boy, when it was done, I was so ecstatic. And the second one I did was aimed in Arizona. And I'm telling you, I was sweating bullets. I'm sitting in the same chair, sweating. But when I got off of it and I was done, again, I felt excited and proud of myself. I had done all I knew how to do. But then I got a call from my sister who told me that at the same time, while I was speaking, Mrs. McCain, Cindy McCain, was on that Facebook Live event. And my sister told me every time I spoke, Cindy was behind in the background cheering and clapping. I said, "You're kidding." So my sister said, "No, she was clapping every time you spoke." And I tell that story because if you're brave and you step out of that comfort zone and you get involved and you do something, this crowd, all of us, will be standing there and cheering and clapping and rooting for you all the way. You can do it. You can be kind, but you can be fearless, and you can step out of your comfort zone and make a difference to elect a great president. We will elect President Harris. Thank you, and be kind and be fierce and go out there, and we're going to clap for you.
Thank you, Susie. And she means it. I think she would adopt all of you. She could. Be kind and yet fierce. Love it. Those are great marching orders.
Before we go on to the next speaker, I wonder if we could do a quick poll to see if, who do we have on this call? Are we Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard, or Space Force? I'd love to find out.
I know. I'd like to know too, because it got a little parochial there with the Army Navy thing going on.
I mean, we know Army is the best branch, objectively speaking. Of course, I don't have any bias on that at all.
Well, we let you guys think that so your feelings don't get hurt, but we know Air Force tops the show.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Y'all are funny.
Well, it looks like Army is winning this poll right now. Unfortunately, we don't have any space cadets on yet, unfortunately. Or maybe a couple? I don't know.
Looks like there's 2.
There you go. All right, we'll give you a few more seconds to chime in on this poll. Looks like Army is the clear front runner. I don't
I
know if
feel
that
like that
means
might be rigged. I think it's rigged.
stop the count. Stop the count.
Up again.
All right. Let's just share the results with you all so you can see that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's great. All right, Sue, back to you. I just wanted to see who we had on the call.
Yeah, as long as you don't ask us to sing the service songs, we'd all be in trouble, I think.
We're going to do that at the end, I think.
So. At this point, it's it's going to be hard to follow Susie, but I just want to introduce another military spouse and veteran powerhouse. I don't know if you guys know Janet Sanchez, but she's amazing. She's a veteran. She's a spouse of a career soldier who retired after 25 years of service. She's also the mother of an Army soldier, did you vote 4 times, Janet? Is that what happened? Is that why the Army's winning?
No, I didn't.
She was born and raised in Puerto Rico into a family of strong and independent women, and you are certainly carrying the flag, Janet. We are looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. And today I am, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And today I'm telling my personal story, and I'm telling you a little bit about where I come from, what I have done, what I'm doing, and how is Kamala Harris important for all of us. My name is Janet Sanchez. I am mother of 3 and loving new grandma. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, left the island at 18 for college and then for the military. I am a veteran, a retired military spouse after 25 years, and now a mother of a soldier. I come from a humble town in Puerto Rico named Sidra, where I learned to be strong and independent, where I learned the simple life. One last thing, I come from Puerto Rico, the island that was damaged by Hurricane Maria, and the Trump government gave us paper towel thrown at us, where National Guard members, while helping the community, were not getting paid. I was raised in an environment where respecting others is both essential and deeply important. My upbringing instilled in me the belief that love is love, regardless of gender, race, or background. This inclusive mindset taught me that every individual, no matter their origin or the language they speak, holds equal value and deserves respect. Growing up, I learned that diversity is a strength and that embracing different cultures and perspectives enriches our lives. I was taught to approach every person with empathy and understanding, recognizing our shared humanity. This foundation has shaped my values and interactions, driving me to advocate for inclusivity and equality in all aspects of life, and to fight for the rights of our Hispanic military and veteran community, a community that continues to grow within the military and is eager to be involved for our rights and our future. I was taught to stand firm for my beliefs, to persevere no matter the obstacles, and to willingly offer my time and effort in service to others. I believe in the power that every woman possesses. I have faith in Kamala Harris' abilities and the positive changes she can bring to our country. I am saddened that President Biden is not running for another term, as he provided me and my community with many opportunities that no one else has ever given us. I am proud of how he held his head high until the end and will leave his presidency with dignity, acknowledging all the hard work he has done. And for that, we are, as a community, very grateful. But now it is Kamala's turn, and I'm ready to support her. Looking forward to a bright and understanding future for our children and for our nation. Let's work together to make sure our next president is the choice. Please share your story. Make sure our military families know how and where to vote. Thank you all.
Thank you, Janet. Really appreciate that. And I believe we have up next is one of my friends and colleagues, Lakeisha Lloyd. She's the Climate Justice Manager for Common Defense, and she's a disabled Army veteran who served from 2001 until 2010. Right now, Lakeisha organizes around issues concerning the impacts of climate change and the need for renewable energy jobs for veterans. And she is currently in Houston, Texas. Lakeisha?
Before she, because she don't have to do it. Climate Justice Director.
Thank you.
Get that title right, Naveen.
We're gonna update the website, Jacob.
Okay, you're right. That is my fault. It's a new title, so we'll make sure that happens tomorrow.
The floor is yours, Lakeisha.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Like everyone said, my name is Lakeisha Lloyd, hailing from Houston, Texas. I'm the Deputy Climate Justice Director for Common Defense. I am a U.S. Army veteran and a member of the Common Defense Black Veterans Caucus. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who has joined us today, and I'm so honored to be among you all. As a Common Defense climate team, we are dedicated to bringing the veteran voice to the fight against climate change, climate misinformation, environmental racism, and racial economic injustice for veterans in Black, Brown, Indigenous, rural, and low-income communities. Our work includes educating and connecting Black communities in West Virginia to renewable energy workforce development opportunities, organizing veterans in Pennsylvania and Arizona to fight for solar development projects, fighting environmental racism in the Gulf South to stop liquid natural gas expansion projects in our native lands and Black communities, working with unions to support renewable energy infrastructure and federal just transition for veterans when they leave the service to be able to get the training that they need to get into these high-paying union renewable energy jobs. With the Biden-Harris administration, we have seen the largest investment in climate justice in U.S. history. With the historical bipartisan infrastructure bill and Inflation Reduction Act, we've seen billions of dollars worth of investments flow into communities who need it the most to create a green future. From renewable energy workforce development, fighting socioeconomic inequality, and fighting for racial justice, helping low-income communities get into good-paying jobs, all the way to communities applying for grants for green spaces, solar, microgrids, to power communities, severe weather resiliency, and sustainability. With the Biden-Harris decision to pause new LNG export permits, understanding that unrestricted liquid natural gas exports pose a significant threat by increasing domestic energy prices and depleting our natural gas reserves, which are critical for energy independence, but also they're poisoning our native lands, the Gulf South, Appalachia, Black communities, Brown communities, low-income communities, and rural communities. With Vice President Harris, she will ensure that these investments in our climate future will not only continue, but expand. Vice President Harris has a climate record herself that she can stand proudly on. As a San Francisco DA, Vice President Harris created an environmental justice unit to prosecute environmental crimes for poor communities. She is quoted saying, crimes against the environment are crimes against communities, people who are often poor and disenfranchised. The people who live in these communities often have no other choice but to live there. As the Attorney General, she filed a suit against the diesel engine terminals for violating regulations by exposing thousands of residents in Long Beach and Los Angeles to high levels of diesel exhaust without giving the proper required warnings to these communities. Again, Vice President Harris shows us that she is a fighter for environmental justice, as well as being a champion of the Inflation Reduction Act and green energy projects, being a messenger across the country, educating communities about the investments that have been made, like the EPA's $20 billion investment in green banks to fund renewable energy infrastructures within communities, and the electrification of school bus legislation. So as we all know, climate change is no longer a far-off future menace. It is here. All over the world, millions of people are being impacted by our climate's rapid warming. As veterans, we've seen the crisis firsthand. We have fought in wars waged over fossil fuels, and we've served on the front lines of hurricanes, wildfires, and heat waves. However, these impacts are not equal. Our native lands and low-income communities of color continue to face the greatest threats from both climate change and pollution in our air and water. To protect communities and our country, we must act now to prevent the most catastrophic outcomes of a warming planet. And we know by Vice President Harris's record that as president, she will continue to move our nation forward to a cleaner, equitable future and be a leader to mitigate the climate crisis we all face. This is a bipartisan issue, and climate change is going to affect us all. We need Vice President Harris in that office. So thank you for your time. And next, I will pass it over to Angela Montalvo, who is with our Women's Veterans Caucus for Common Defense. Angela?
Hey, sorry, Angela, to interrupt. We're gonna adjust fire just a little bit because we have a slight adjustment in just the schedule. So we're gonna come back to you in a second. Up next, we actually have Eugene Vinman, I believe.
Yeah.
Tyrone?
Hi.
There
Hi,
you go.
everybody.
Gene, hey, there you are.
Hey.
All right.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for having me on this really important group of veterans and military families. So my name is Eugene Vinman. I'm a 25-year vet of the United States Army, former colonel, spent half my career as a infantry officer, paratrooper, the other half as a JAG. Some of you might recognize my face, or a slight variation of my face with my twin brother from the first impeachment, which we actually just celebrated the 5th anniversary of the first impeachment, that infamous call where Donald Trump attempted to extort President Zelensky of Ukraine in order to interfere in our elections. And so it was one of the first times that his character and his unfitness to serve in office was highlighted for the American people. So I'm actually now the Democratic nominee for Virginia's 7th Congressional District. We had our primary last month, and we had a resounding win. 7-person contested primary, we got 50% of the vote. So we feel like we have a mandate. And there's been a great deal of passion and interest in the campaign. I'll just give you a little bit of an anecdote here. So about 2-3 weeks ago, we did an event, couple of different events around the district. For those of you that are not familiar with the region, we're about 20 miles south on I-95 of Washington, D.C., and then we go all the way out to the Potomac River and the Piedmont. Anyway, we had a house party. About 40 or 50 folks came out. Serious passion and interest in the campaign. A couple of days later, I was campaigning with the incumbent retiring Congresswoman, and we had 100 people. But there's been a real massive change in the last 7 days. So 2 weeks ago, it was people realizing what the stakes were and really acting out of fear and concern for the election. But we have an even more powerful emotion now, and we have it's hope. There is just such enormous hope now over the last 7 days, 8 days. Real passion in the campaign. We've done a couple of different events around the district. We're 100 days from Election Day, and we've had a couple of hundred different. Yesterday's event, 200 people come out. Today's event, we had somewhere around 150. Look, Virginia is not in play. We're going to win in Virginia. We're going to win up and down the ticket. We have a great Senate nominee in Senator Tim Kaine. Hillary Clinton is a running mate, and we're going to elect and make history by electing Kamala Harris as president. So I'm proud to be on the ticket, down ticket from Kamala Harris. And look, the stakes could not be higher. We are the party that protects freedom. I spent 25 years in the military defending Americans' rights against enemies, foreign and domestic, protecting our freedoms. We protect freedoms to love who you want to love, have children when you want to have children, the freedom to have an abortion or grow a family through IVF or contraception for that matter. All of these things are in play. We are the party that actually cares about the American people throughout their entire life, not just what the Republicans claim, but throughout your entire life. So once you're born, making sure that kids have access to safe, high-quality schools, have childcare, have medical coverage, all the way through adulthood and old age, preserving Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid. And finally, we're the party that will help Americans and safeguard the economy. The bottom line is we're the party of the working class, working people, and by winning up and down the ticket, electing Kamala Harris as president, re-electing our great senator here, and holding this critically important district, we're going to win back the House. And I'm glad to be just on the train. So thanks, everybody.
Hey, Eugene, thanks, man. And we definitely appreciate you being in the fight, or I guess I should say staying in the fight with us. And we know you're going to win. I know those Prince William Dems, they're crazy and they love to work. So they'll be out there knocking on those doors and making phone calls for you. So thanks for joining us today.
Hope trumps fear and hate.
Yes, it does. Stomps it out too.
That's right.
And next on deck, a lot of us here, myself and Sue, we're great at writing policy. Even you can have a good candidate, but if you don't have great messaging, or I should say a great messenger, and people who are great at putting that policy out to the people, then sometimes your work is for naught. And so, further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend, Linda Smith. As calm as I am, she's 180 of that when it comes to energy, excitement, when it comes to supporting veterans and military families across this country, especially in her focus in our battleground states. And she was very key in our efforts in securing Georgia in 2020, and she's going to be key this year in 2024. So, Glenda, thanks for joining us. Take it away.
Hi, Tehran, my brother from another mother. Love you to pieces because Cliff Kelly, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, host emeritus of America's Heroes Group that we started, incorporated in 2015, started our first and aired our first broadcasting show on April 2016 on Saturdays from 4 to 5. We had no support. We had no guests. We had nothing, but we knew we had a platform. The platform has always been built on the foundation of honor, excellence, and integrity in regarding to resources and information. So it, from that point, grew legs and started to walk. Okay, so we didn't go social because we had no support. We had no audience, really. We were on Saturdays from 4 to 5, WVON 1690 AM, local flash station. We went social on Facebook for the first time through our partner, Jesse Brown VA, September 2020. We launched our first podcast October 2020. We did everything in 2020 because at that time, that Saturday show culminated into us going from 1 hour to 2 hours. And so what we discovered that we had started to leave out of Chicago and into other states. So I then incorporated Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout uploaded our podcast. Buzzsprout does for podcast and radio what Nelson does for TV. It tells you exactly where you are. So what we do on Saturdays with Cliff, who's our host emeritus now, our host, Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold, Iraq combat medic veteran, Sean Claiborne, National Guard, U.S. Army is in the house all the way. Stephanie Collada is U.S. Army, our correspondent. So what we do is we allow veteran voices across the globe to be heard, to be celebrated, to be acknowledged, to be exposed, based on resources and information. And what we have as of today, I can report via Buzzsprout Analytics. We currently have 5,749,000 and more downloads on a podcast that we started October 2020. We are in 1,132 cities. We are in 8 major cities. We have 113,000 YouTube subscribers. We have a monthly newsletter. So what we do across the spectrum of a digital media Corporation show is allow voices to be heard based on resources and information, the truth. For instance, I'm standing on the fact that it is being reported from USA Today. It is being reported by Task and Purpose news outlet. It is being reported that Project 25 will detrimentally damage veterans in particular. In particular, the ones who are on house and the ones that have they don't have a lot in terms of their means of income. So they're on a fixed income and they're expecting X amount of money based on their services. Because why? They put the boots on. They want to serve the country. So Project 25, if it is implemented, would absolutely destroy that. I have another problem with the commander-in-chief position because I know personally, I have talked to young Black men that are my godchildren. And I said to them, if you take another route, if you don't want to go to college, okay, go to the armed services. Why? It's a new beginning. It's training. It's development. It's discipline. It gives you a sense of direction and purpose for your life. If you go in, you can have a new start. But because some of them had a small felony, they couldn't do it. They wasn't accepted. They wasn't eligible. So I have a damn problem with the fact of the possibility that someone who is a felon can become the leader of the most powerful and strongest armed forces in the country. How in the world would honor, the code of honor that these men and women take, veterans and active, the code of honor to represent the United States of America? How in the world can you stand in leadership of commander-in-chief as a felon to lead these brave men and women? How can you do that? That's not acceptable because taxpayer citizens who have felons cannot become, even though they made mistakes, second chances, yes, but because you have a felon on your record, you cannot. So now this is a double standard. How can a commander-in-chief be a felon, but a regular taxpaying citizen who wants that second opportunity or that new beginning? How can they not have that? So I have a problem with all of that because the men and women of the armed forces of veterans take a code of honor through an oath. Because why? They are defenders of democracy. So I take pleasure in being executive director and producer and the only non-veteran in our organization because I produce my appreciation. I produce my respect. I produce my gratitude for brave men and women who put the boots on, who went and served, who has taken a code of honor to serve this country. But not only that, the sacrifice. Because when they leave their families and significant others, it ain't no guarantee that they're coming back home. So we as a country must always understand the honor and sacrifice that has been served past, present, and future by whom? The military population. The brave men and women who have put on the boots, worn the boots, and then they come back home with the boots that those that have come back home. Because then guess what? They have to live with what they have done, what they've seen. Why? Because they have taken an oath through honor and a code as defenders of democracy. So it is a pleasure to produce our weekly show, digital media live streaming on Wednesdays from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. It is an honor that I partnered with Tehran because he lives what the hell he says. He lives by his code. He lives by honor. He lives what he says. So I will always support him. Personally speaking, last week, I wiped my eyes because my heart was broken because a man of honor, a man of character stepped down to do what was best in the actions of democracy. How could you not love Joe Biden? He put a Black woman on the Supreme Court who looked like me. He allowed another woman who looked like all of us to be his vice president in position to become president. How could you not respect and love that man? 501c3 organization, America's Heroes Group, welcomes all who is about honor, who's about democracy. You are welcome to have a voice. You can call me directly at 773-301-5411 to have your voice heard. Thank you all. And I appreciate all of you who have worn the boots in code of honor.
Thank you, Glenda. And we definitely appreciate your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion for us, for our family members, and definitely are glad and better off that you are supporting us and not against us.
Absolutely.
Take it away, Masherie. Love it.
All right, so before I introduce the next person, I just want to call to attention that there are quite a few questions coming in as to whether or not this will be available online. And yes, we will upload it to YouTube. There are also a ton of questions, so we will synthesize that and put it into some sort of FAQ so that the most important questions can be answered and you all can get the information that you're looking for. But it is now my pleasure to introduce actually, we are Angela. I apologize. I'm introducing Claridith Landry. We are going to put you after her. So apologize for that confusion. But I am now going to introduce a newer friend and definitely colleague in the space of advocacy and efforts for veterans. Claridith Landry is an Army Intelligence Combat veteran. She served as the Deputy Director of People, Diversity, and Inclusion for the Biden-Harris campaign in 2020. And she was also a presidential appointee who served as Special Assistant to Secretary of the Army. Claridith is the founder of the Inclusive Sorority Collective Initiative, where she developed solutions for the defense industrial complex. Claridith, off to you.
Thank you so much, Masherie, and really excited to be on this call with other service members, with families, with veteran families, with military families who really feel called to duty once again and have raised their hand to say, I'm willing to serve once more, and as many times as it takes until we go into the direction that we really need to go. So again, I'm very glad to be on this call. As Masherie shared, I am an Army combat veteran. I served nearly 9 years as an intelligence officer, primarily focused on protecting research and developing technologies, which is basically the foundation of my company. In my previous capacity, being in the Biden-Harris administration, even on the campaign, I focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I was actually the deputy director for DEI for for President Biden, and then continued in that same path, supporting the current Secretary of the Army in a myriad of ways, actually. And some of the things that I can say I'm very, very proud of is really bringing attention to the rich tapestry of heroes that we have that's a part of our military history. As my colleague and dear friend Richard Brookshire mentioned earlier, we have so many that are just now getting their just due and getting the attention that they need. And I was very grateful that I got to be a small part of that very large effort when it came to either the posthumous promotion of West Point graduate and Buffalo Soldier Brigadier General Charles Young, if it had to do with the base naming commission, making sure that heroes of every creed, of every background across 10 different military bases and posts were rightfully acknowledged because of their selfless service, because of their courage, and also making sure that we tackled other initiatives that are currently being experienced by service members and families and should not and have no place in our military when it comes to sexual assault, sexual harassment, and suicide prevention. So these are issues that across the board need to continue, and under a Harris administration will do so, because our strength as a military force is completely indicative and a result of the strength of the families that are there with our service members. And as Masherie mentioned, one of my current endeavors and my company, Inclusive Security Collective Initiative, is focused on granting access. As I mentioned earlier, I focused in my career on protecting developing technologies, and it really stood out to me that so many technologies were being predominantly developed in schools that historically did not always permit people from marginalized communities to attend. And that's why we have minority serving institutions and historically Black colleges and universities. But at the end of the day, we need all minds from all backgrounds and all academic institutions to contribute to the national security posture of this great nation. We need to make sure that these developing technologies are protected. We need to make sure that the infrastructure at our academic institutions have equitable funding that are being invested into these schools so that they actually can have the research centers that are available to continue said research, that technology eventually gets to our first line defenders, to our soldiers, to our airmen, to so many others. So again, one of the highlights of being able to serve was basically supporting the first ever historically Black college and university affiliated research center, which was created under the Biden-Harris administration. That particular initiative invested an unprecedented amount of research, defense research dollars for capacity building, for skill set development that specifically went to 9 HBCUs, including Vice President Harris's alma mater, the illustrious Howard University, which is the epicenter of the HBCU arc, which includes 9 in total colleges and universities that are a part of that endeavor. And part of my company is really just about developing inclusive solutions that focus on addressing evolving strategic threats while empowering historically underserved and underrepresented communities to be included in the defense industrial complex as coined by President Eisenhower. And the reason I say that that's such an initiative, and yes, it's about mission over people. Yes, it's about making sure that our families get the support, the resources that they need because they too serve. It's also making sure that the systems and the infrastructure in the communities in which we live and serve are there to support us as well. And the defense industrial complex yields $1 trillion value that could stimulate every community that we live and that we serve. And for some reason, which we know, a lot of times has to do with not looking at the investment dollars being shared equitably, our communities, specifically in the African-American community, sees less than 0.07% of that $1 trillion investment, okay? When you're talking about 20% of African-Americans serving in the military, as well as another 20% of Latino Americans serving in the military. So the math ain't mathin', y'all. If I'm really gonna be honest, let's do some math here. It's not mathin', okay? But under the Biden-Harris administration, we started taking the right steps toward closing that generational wealth gap a bit and being intentional with our investments. And that had to do with making sure that there was legislative language and input that expanded the amount that was included in the National Defense Authorization Act, raising that bar in line 4144 to $90 million to be shared across 9 schools across 5 years. It meant academic institutional investment, ensuring that there's an increase in the Smart STEM scholarships and HBCUs to go from one percentage to another so that you have more talent interested in AI and cyber in the technological professional fields of the future that we need to be prepared for. Also, this is, that leads right into the workforce development and creating an actual pipeline, okay? We serve not just for ourselves, we serve for our future. So we want to make sure that our children, your children, have access to the very best of the institutions that they attend, the academic institutions that they attend, have the resources, have the capacity, have the infrastructure so they get a top-notch education. And again, one that prepares them for the next phase of this industrial revolution that we're currently in, okay? And so that's what a current Biden-Harris administration meant for us. It also meant innovation and business development, leveraging several platforms, because honestly, under previous administrations, and really over the last 25 years, has been a consolidation of what it means to actually participate in the defense industrial complex. And what I mean by that is the same companies, the same defense organizations, the same defense contracting companies get access to the majority of that $1 trillion industry that I mentioned earlier. And unfortunately, that leaves a lot of us out. That leaves marginalized, underrepresented communities and businesses not being able to participate when you are very much positioned to do so. And it also means an opportunity to create tech hubs and manufacturing hubs that create more jobs in areas that historically, when military service members retire or transition from their service in uniform and want to continue to provide their service after, this is an opportunity for them to do so through manufacturing and tech hubs that would be available through a Harris administration, which would only continue the current progress that we're experiencing now. So I've talked to you a bit about the issue. I've talked to you about my why. How can you help? Okay, one, we need service members and family members to tell their stories. Not only what you've experienced in trying to start your own business, maybe your academic institution experience, but also what future do you want carved out for your children, for our future? And what should they have access to with an intentional investment and sustainable investment in our defense industrial complex? We've served, we raised our hand. And what I will say is it's an opportunity for us to continue to serve for a president, which we all are working toward, that being President Harris, Vice President Harris becoming President Harris. Let's continue to serve so that she in turn can serve us. I just want to thank you all for the time. Thank you for listening. This is really not only about the work we're doing here, but the work we need to do moving forward.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. And thanks again to all of our friends and family at home who are listening in. This is going to be a great evening and turning out so far to be really awesome. Want to remind everybody, if you're at home, to please donate. And if you haven't already, sign up for a volunteer shift. There's opportunities everywhere. We're throwing the links in the chat. And this is really exciting to have so many of you on more than 1,500 folks on right now. Up next, I want to introduce Angela Montalvo, who will be speaking a little bit about her experience. Angela?
Thanks, Naveed. I'm Angela Montalvo. I'm a U.S. Army veteran and military spouse. This election, women are going to be crucial. We've learned that using our veteran voices has power. Women veterans can harness and use that power to help elect Vice President Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States. We must use our voices to tell others about what is at stake this election. 1 in 5 service members are women who volunteered to serve this country. Too many women who are or have been in the military have witnessed or been victims of sexual assault or harassment. Sometimes sexual assault results in unwanted pregnancies. Since the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade nearly 2 years ago, we have seen many states limit access to reproductive care. Today, there are more than 92,000 female service members stationed in states with restricted access to reproductive health care. Women serving need access to reproductive health care to ensure our military readiness, and women everywhere deserve those same reproductive health care rights. Personally, I left the state of Nebraska and moved to Pennsylvania so my daughters and I could live in a state that respects women's rights, reproductive health care, and overall health care decisions. I'm privileged to have the ability to do this. Since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, we've seen the power of the women voter bloc all across the nation, even in states like Kansas and Ohio, which shows that even women in more conservative states don't want to be told what to do with their bodies. I'm supporting Vice President Harris to win in November to preserve our rights, and we must do everything in our power to ensure that happens. Donate, volunteer, and talk to people in your networks about the stakes of this election. Anything you can do is important. Together, we can elect Vice President Harris as the next president of the United States. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Angela. Really appreciate you. Up next, we have a good friend of mine named Fred Wellman. Fred is a 22-year Army veteran who served 4 combat tours over Operations Desert Storm and Iraqi Freedom. He's the former executive director of the Lincoln Project and is now a Democratic campaign consultant and the host of On Democracy with F.P. Wellman on the Midas Touch Network. And he's also the national chairman of the Forgotten Democrats. Without further ado, my friend, Fred Wellman.
Thanks, Sabine. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for hanging in with us. That's a Sunday afternoon. I know you got places to be, and you're here with us. I get the honor to tell you the bad stuff, right? This is, as fellow veterans and military families, I think one of the biggest transitions for me as I left the military was having that conversation about politics. I was actually a veterans advocate for 10 years, and then I got sucked into politics 4 years for some reason, but here I am. But people look to us, and those are uncomfortable conversations. And when you have these conversations with your fellow veterans and military families, a lot of times they're gonna question you. I mean, how often have you guys had conversations at the baseball field or wherever you are, and they say, "Yeah, but what has Biden done for us?" And let's remember, Trump took the military, did really good for the military, took care of us. And those of us who served then or are veterans know that's not quite accurate. I mean, what kind of things did happen under Trump in his first chance being the president of the United States? I mean, he started before being elected saying that he didn't like people who were captured. He actually dismissed our POWs, right? We had constant turmoil over at the VA. The headquarters of the VA was like this palace intrigue for those who worked there and forget about it. From day one of the administration, they placed spies in each of the cabinets. How many people remember that great? I love Leinenkugel beer, but wasn't it strange that Jake Leinenkugel was hanging out in the VA's offices, just hanging out, watching for President Trump? That's before Trump had the Secretary of the VA reporting to his friends from Mar-a-Lago, the Mar-a-Lago Three, Ike Perlmutter and others, most of them not veterans, before they started steering contracts to their own family members directly from the Secretary of VA. And that's before we talk about Trump's outrageous behaviors, from calling us suckers and losers, skipping a visit of a national cemetery overseas, saying as I mentioned, not wanting wounded warriors at events because it made it look bad. And how many of us remember that Trump actually blamed Gold Star family members for giving him COVID and not the big event they had nominating Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court? Those are the things we had before. But what's coming for us? What's coming next? Well, a lot. I mean, let's start with absentee ballots. They're already saying, Trump's saying he only wants 1 day of voting. Do you guys know where absentee and voting came from? It came from us. It came from service members. In 1864 or so, those serving on the front lines could vote in the election that year. And to this day, most of us vote that way. Obviously, all of our service members overseas. Getting rid of only in-person voting disenfranchises hundreds of thousands of our service members and their family members. They're going to ban transgender Americans from serving their country, people who want to step up, who want to serve their nation. You all know, for all of us know, that less than a third of us can even qualify to be in the military. Why would we want to cut out even more who just want to serve honorably? That's before we talk about Project 2025. Schedule F, which is the whole remaking of the civil service, will fire, frankly, could endanger the jobs of hundreds of thousands of our veterans. Over half the VA is veterans. More than that at the DoD are veterans. Schedule F will allow them to be fired for anything from giving a donation to a Democratic candidate is cause for firing, to be replaced by people from the Republican or the MAGA world that have been vetted and will only do that. I mean, imagine the idea that your doctor gets fired because he gave money to a Democrat 5 years ago and you get a MAGA doctor instead. They will only want the VA to treat service-related injuries. In other words, you know how it is, guys. If you go to the VA, sure, you get in because you're a service-related injury. But if you develop diabetes, arthritis, all those things get serviced. They want to go back to the only thing you'd be able to get care for will be that original designated service-related illness or injury. They want to dramatically cut back service-related benefits and the things they're allowed to get for benefits and health care. They want to further privatize the VA, closing down these great hospitals where you go and they know your background. My favorite thing is, a doctor knowing that since you flew OH-58s like I did back in the day in the 101st Airborne, you got a bad back. Anybody who flew an OH-58 has a thing called scout hunch because the way it was built, you kind of hunched over and you flew it. It was amazing when I met a doctor who actually knew that was a thing without having to explain it to him. They want to direct VA healthcare providers to meet as many patients a day as DoD healthcare providers. That sounds weird, right? What do you mean? Well, what's the average age of a soldier, a service member? 28. The average age of a veteran is 58. Of course, it takes longer to see them by a healthcare provider, but they want to mandate protocols that VA healthcare providers meet these standards. They're the same ones they meet for DoD. And that's just a few of the things in Project 2025. But there's good news. The good news are that the Biden-Harris administration has done so much for us. And all the other speakers, if you've been here for a while, have told you about a lot of things, starting with the PACT Act. One thing, the PACT Act is an incredible thing that happened, right? Did you know that over 1 million veterans are receiving health care and benefits now that weren't getting it before? That's a lot. The most the VA ever had was 9 million and actually enrolled in benefits, no matter healthcare. Now, in just 2 years, over 1 million of our brothers and sisters and husbands and wives and families are getting the healthcare and benefits they deserve because of the passage of the PACT Act, which was shepherded through by the Democrats and by President Biden and Vice President Harris. That's changed a lot. And of course, they brought stability to the VA. I mean, we've got the same VA secretary. We got pretty much the same undersecretaries. There's been very little turmoil and trouble. I mean, I joke all the time that the best thing that the Biden-Harris administration has brought is boringness to government. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I was kind of sick of exciting days. I mean, do you guys remember getting policies via tweet? I mean, don't forget the transgender policy went out by tweet. And the Joint Chiefs at one point actually had to monitor Twitter to see if Trump was going to issue them orders or policies. Do we really want to go back to that? So remind your brothers and sisters, your neighbors, your moms, dads, your older veterans, that that's how life was. The idea that we have active duty service members sitting at their computers all day to see if the president issues an order for the government and for the military via tweet should be enough. But the good news is, this is what I tell everybody on my show all the time. I tell you, and people think I'm crazy. Actually, they told me I was crazy until this week. We're winning. Okay, we're winning. I know it didn't seem like that for a while, but we are winning. We have the numbers. We have the motivation. We have the morale. We have the great candidate. We have a very professional campaign. Look at what they've done in a week. My God, $200 million raised, 170,000 volunteers. Did you know that 66% of the donors that a Harris campaign were first-time donors this cycle? That is big. And that's where we are right now, just a week into this campaign. But people are going to look to us. People are going to look to you, veterans. They're going to talk to each other. People are going to look to you, military families, because we all know the military spouse community especially, y'all hang out together and you talk to each other and you trust each other. So we're going to have uncomfortable conversations. So arm yourself with the knowledge and be ready. But in the meantime, we've got 100 days, just 100 days. Man, you guys, anyway, that's nothing. That's where you get the countdown counter. We're almost double-digit midgets, for God's sake, right? I mean, look, tomorrow's 99. We can stand on our head for 99 freaking days. God knows I did during my 4 combat tours and Korea and Kuwait. So 99 days ain't nothing. So we can do a lot in 99 days and just shake it off, because that's what we've been asked to do our entire adult lives for many of us, or parts of our adult lives. So what can you do? Man, we talked about donating. I don't know about y'all. I ain't got a ton of money. Sorry, I hate to tell you. But you can do the things. Look, there isn't a campaign in the world that doesn't need your volunteer help. If you don't want to do national with the president, we'd love to have that. But if you can't, find your local congressional race. Find your state delegate race. They would love your help. Get a sign. Phone bank. You can phone bank from anywhere in the world, by the way. You can send postcards. There are so many organizations that want to help you get involved in our democracy, get involved in this campaign, and help us win well beyond your money, but with your, muscle power and your brains and your voice. Use that voice for 99 days, starting tomorrow, and we will win. We could put this sordid past behind us once and for all. So that's what I got to tell you. Stay in the fight. You guys are great. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you guys, and let's get at it.
Good job, 88. Good job.
Hooah.
Well, thanks,
Hooah.
Fred. Appreciate you. Up next is another friend of mine, Travis Akers from Florida, who's a 20-year Navy veteran. Travis.
Hey, thanks, Naveed. It's great to follow Fred, who's also a great friend. My name is Travis Akers. I'm a retired Navy intelligence officer and veterans and military families advocate, and I am all in and ready to win with Vice President Harris. But that's not why I'm here today. I want to share a story with you. In 2018, Navy Lieutenant Chris Reed, my shipmate, passed away after his courageous battle with leukemia, directly related to his exposure to burn pits. Chris was an EOD officer who played a key role in the recovery efforts of Operation Red Wings, the 2005 mission that was famously portrayed in the book and film The Lone Survivor. I was not just his shipmate, but I was also his family's casualty assistance calls officer. As the Reed family's Keiko, I saw firsthand the impacts of burn pits and toxic exposures. I shared his story with dozens of lawmakers on Capitol Hill as I was advocating with members of Congress to pass the PACT Act. In 2022, I shared his story with Vice President Harris, and in turn, she shared his story with the nation during her Veterans Day speech at Arlington National Cemetery, just weeks after the Biden-Harris administration signed the historic PACT Act into law. Because of this administration, millions of veterans and military families now have the support that they not only needed, but deserve. With the passage of the historic PACT Act, our nation is serving those who have served. No other administration in my lifetime has dedicated more resources, more time, more support, more passion, more love, and care to our veterans and military families than the Biden-Harris administration. When we elect Vice President Harris on November 5th, we are electing a proven ally of the veterans and military families community, an ally who is extremely qualified in every facet of the requirements to be the commander-in-chief, and who will continue to support our veterans and elevate military families to meet our unique needs. She's the only candidate in this race who I trust and who has earned my confidence to be a voice for our military families and veterans community. I am proud to support Vice President Harris. So please partner with me in donating, volunteering, and joining the front lines to win this election for our country's future. You'll see the links to do all three of those in the chat that's been provided. And please feel free to share those links with your friends, your families, your coworkers, and across your social media as well. Together, we will elect the first woman president of the United States. Now, before I turn this back over, I have one final thing to say. Go Navy, beat Army.
Thanks, Travis. And you know what I'm going to
That
say?
must be
Go
all you
Air
have to
Force.
say, Travis.
It's nice to have like a palate cleanser, though. It's nice to have like a Navy person in there amongst all the Army, especially since I'm about to introduce another Army family member, but what can you do? Thanks so much for sticking with us, you guys. I hope you stick to the end because we have some fantastic speakers coming up. It is so difficult putting together an agenda when you have all these rock stars. We have Charlie Conrad coming up, who's going to talk about organizing at the state level. We have Jimmy Anderson, Rear Admiral Mike Smith, and then Patrick and Tyrone are going to like wrap it all up for us. So I hope you will stick with us, even if we run over just a little bit. And I know we had a lot of family members ask if there was going to be a t-shirt for military families for Harris. There absolutely is. Our friends from Common Defense have put the link in there. So if you sign up in the same link for a t-shirt, they will let us know when the t-shirt for families comes out as well. At this point in time, I'm happy and honored to introduce my friend Rebecca Sanderlin, who is an Army spouse, a journalist, and also an incredible storyteller. Rebecca, share your story with us.
All right. Well, thank you, Sue. Are y'all pumped to be here? I am super pumped to be here. So I'm Rebecca Sanderlin. I'm a longtime military spouse, currently living in Virginia Beach, even though I come from an Army family. And I've been married for 21 years to a recently retired Army Special Forces Command Sergeant Major, which is a lot of words that basically mean that people usually don't assume I'm voting for the Democrat. I'm also a longtime journalist, though, like Sue mentioned, and I've covered a lot of different beats over the years and written thousands of stories. And in 2005, I started the very first military spouse blog. I wrote a parenting column for military.com for several years. And I was a conservative political columnist for the Fayetteville Observer daily newspaper. This crowd probably knows conservative in an Army town is next level conservative. So my right-leaning words also appeared in the New York Times, CNN, the Washington Post, the Atlantic, and elsewhere. So one of the things that I love most about this military community is our real organic diversity. We come from absolutely every corner and every experience in this nation. So that means you probably have some Trump voters in your friend and family groups. I know I do. As a former conservative, today I want to help you figure out how to talk to them about this election, because you know you're going to be having those conversations in real life, on social media. So here's what you need to say, okay? First, you're not going to argue them into changing their minds. It will do no good to berate them with facts. They are immune to facts. You've probably noticed this. Sometimes they even have their own alternative facts. It will also do no good to tell them what a terrible person Donald Trump is. They know. And as hard as it is for us to believe, they like him anyway. But what you can do is share with them hope. That's what we have that they don't have. Optimism, hope, and excitement. Now, let me tell you a little story. In 2008, when I was a conservative political columnist, I was pulling hard for John McCain. I was pulling so hard for him that I took my 7-week-old baby to a McCain rally. I slapped a drill baby drill button on her onesie, no kidding. And at one point, I even had to lay her down on the stage while McCain was speaking so that I could change her diaper because I had managed to weasel our way into the very front row. It was a bit of a moment. Secret Service got involved. We even made national news. I thought then and now that McCain would have made an excellent president. I really, really liked him. But as much as I liked him, it was 2008. And I remember looking around and realizing that my guy didn't have the passion and excitement around him that Barack Obama had. I knew I was missing the party. That's what Trump voters are experiencing right now. No one is starving for hope like Trump supporters. They are so desperate for something to believe in that they'll believe anything he says. And he's not offering them hope. He's only offering hate and fear. And even conservatives get tired of being told they should be scared and angry all the time. They want hope. So offer them hope. Let them see your excitement. Don't tell them why they shouldn't vote for him. Tell them why you're excited to vote for her. Now, here's another story. In 2019, 11 years after that McCain rally, I took that same daughter and my other two kids, drove from Colorado Springs to Denver, waited in line for hours on my birthday, and went to a rally for Kamala Harris. I told my kids then that we were seeing our nation's first woman president. And now here we are. So listen, the excitement we're feeling, it's real. The momentum, it's real. This is a historic year and a vitally important election. I believe our beautiful, authentically diverse, powerful, patriotic military community can lead the way and show this nation we represent how it's done. So, are you feeling pumped? I'm really pumped. Y'all, thank you. Let's do this.
Someone get her a bullhorn. She needs to go on the road, Tron. Can we sign her up right now? Thank you, Rebecca. I'm so pumped. That was awesome. And like we're just going to continue with this theme of getting us pumped up because our next speaker, Sarah Strader, is our Space Force spouse. We have a Space Force spouse. You were the one person who voted in the poll, weren't you, Sarah? She is a military spouse advocate and organizer. She's a former staffer from the Obama White House, and she's a current toddler, dog, and plant mom. Sarah, take it away.
Thanks, Sue. And piggybacking off Rebecca's theme of hope, I want to talk about the future. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because I want a commander-in-chief that I can trust. We are an active duty family. If I'm voting for my service member's future boss, I want to feel confident that person will lead with strength and responsibility. Our family just wrapped a duty assignment in the Indo-Pacific. And do you know how much easier it was to embrace that assignment because I didn't have to worry that a presidential tweet might fumble our country into war? I'm voting for Kamala Harris because we can't afford the alternative. Literally, we're an enlisted family. Too many of our friends and neighbors rely on the social services that other guy wants to cut. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because my family was stationed near DC on June 1st, 2020. When the last president mobilized force against peaceful protesters for a political photo op. We didn't know until days later whether there were active duty troops behind those batons and tear gas that we were watching on TV. I don't want my spouse's service manipulated for political ends. And I'm voting for Kamala Harris because I want my friends who are trans to be able to continue serving their country without looking over their shoulder. I want my friends who aren't white and aren't in heterosexual marriages to have robust federal protections when they get PCS to all different states and overseas. And I want myself and my friends to have the freedom and funds to travel if we need reproductive health care our local state no longer provides. If you're a military family member on this call, I know we've been pretty veteran heavy. If you're on the fence about whether or not to get involved this year, here's my just 2 cents. Campaigns are fun. They're a great way to meet friends, either in your local area or virtually online. I know so many of us feel alone and isolated in this active duty military life. So let's find our community here. There's a place for everyone on a campaign. If you hate door knocking, offer childcare support for those who love it. If you're a caregiver who's at home looking for some home-friendly tasks, join a text bank. And if you're stationed overseas, like I will be in literally 3 weeks, we will find a way to help you write postcards, that I can promise. We will literally need everyone from everywhere for this year. If your partner or loved one is still active duty service, and if you have any worries or concerns about what the heck's even allowed for you to do, find me on socials and send me a direct message because I have a bunch of resources that I would love to send your way. And just to close, I want to emphasize how important simply having conversations with people you know is going to be. Relational voter outreach, which is some fancy consultant's term for reminding people you know to vote, that is 10 times more effective than any stranger to stranger contact. And like Rebecca said, you don't even need a conversation, because simply reminding folks to vote and or reminding folks that there are real humans in their life who may have slight disagreements with them or major disagreements with them, that is an act of democracy in and of itself, because we all rely on the values of pluralism and diversity of thought to make sure that we have a thriving democracy. So even if you don't donate a cent, although I know that's what we're supposed to be plugging, and even if you don't write a single postcard, although that is super cool and fun, even if the simplest thing that you do is have a single conversation with someone you know, I promise that you will have done enough. Thanks all.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah. Great work. Thanks again for doing this. And hey, everybody who's still here, thank you all for being here. I want to launch a quick poll again. And for this one, we're going to keep things interesting, keep things a little spicy. Who do you want to be the vice presidential pick? I gave you as many options as I could, so please vote. We'll give you a minute to do that. Lots of good choices. I know a couple
My
of
choice isn't up there. Like the one who might be the vice president is not up there.
Who's that?
Mark Kelly.
Oh, you're right. Oh man, I didn't.
How did you not put Mark Kelly up there?
Oh, sorry, I just copied this list.
Dude, man.
Mark Kelly was supposed to be up there.
You live to be. Come on, man.
Well,
Yeah.
redo
Take
it.
it down and fix it. Take it down and fix it.
Take it out. Replace Whitmer with Kelly, because Whitmer's already
That's
said
right.
she's not doing it.
Yeah, that's a lot of abuse coming in from the panel.
Yeah. No, and you know what? Deservedly. I
told us to keep this lighthearted, so that's right. There we go.
Any other choices on here?
What service was he in, Turo?
Hey, but combat Navy.
All right, here the poll is back up again. So now you can vote for your choices.
Right.
With most of them, at least. I didn't put Marianne Williamson on this one.
But he didn't go to the school, Fred, so he's okay.
That's food for the most progressive state in the country, Minnesota.
If people just a minute, it looks like Mark Kelly is the early favorite, so I'm glad that we added him. Thanks for reminding me. Can't believe I left him off.
No, I like the old Army NCO, man. Come on now, let's put him out there.
Right.
NCOs like Tim kept me out of a lot of trouble.
All right, folks, we'll give you maybe 10 more seconds to vote for your favorite. We'll pass this on to the campaign. I don't know if they'll listen to us, but we can try. All right, the poll is ending right now. And just like you said, Mark Kelly won 45%. Then Mayor Pete is coming in next at 19%. Also, although I should call him Secretary Pete by now. That's great. Awesome. Well, up next, we have one of our good friends that I think I know is Russell. Y'all might know him by another name, the Jolly Good Ginger, everybody.
Well, you stole my opening line, but hi, my name is Russell, but more people know me as Jolly. And I appreciate you guys having me here at Common Defense. I appreciate you putting this together. And I'm fired up to be just with this group of veterans. I know that we have all these veterans on the call with us. We have people on TikTok and YouTube live streaming this. Shout out to Union Gang. Listen, this is a veteran movement, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I was in the Army, go Army, human intelligence, veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq. Naveed told me, hey, we got 5 minutes to speak. And I thought, wow, I can't even say hello inside of 5 minutes. So I had to figure out, what do I want to talk about in that time? And Rebecca kind of touched on exactly what I want to talk about. Here's what I landed on, because this gets me the most fired up. The right, the conservatives, they've hijacked us. When someone hears veteran, when someone hears military, they immediately think we're conservatives. They've hijacked the flag. They've hijacked the word patriot. They assume we vote for Trump. And me, frankly, I'm sick of it. So I'm here to say loud and proud, I am a veteran for Harris. It's never Trump. There isn't a single thing that Donald Trump or his party stands for or talks about that represents any of the values and morals that I hold as a veteran. When I was in the Army, I feel like I was answering the call to fight for freedom. Not freedom for just me or those who look like me or those who think like me, freedom for all. Freedom for everyone to have health care. Freedom for everyone to have food, to have shelter. Freedom for trans people to exist. Freedom to read books. Freedom to learn American history as it happened and not how they want you to hear it. I believe, above all, I was fighting for American citizens to have the freedom to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Vice President Kamala Harris stands for those principles and promises to protect those freedoms. The only promise Donald Trump has given us, he gave us on January 6, 2021. Maya Angelou said, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And on January 6, 2021, we saw a wannabe dictator refuse to concede an election. To this day, he hasn't conceded it. He's already said he'll be a dictator for a day. Here's your homework assignment. Find a dictator that left after one day. He just said last week, if you vote for just one last time, you'll never have to do it again. Somebody shows you who they are, believe them. He has vengeance on his mind, and MAGA is looking to coronate a king. He's already robbed women of their bodily autonomy. He's already promised to take away the rights of the LGBTQI plus community. He has promised to put unhoused people into prisons. He's promised to purge the government and install a lawyer. He's promised to usher in Christian nationalism. Well, I have a promise for him. And I ask all of you here today on this call to join me. Because I promise you, you will fail MAGA. You will fail Donald Trump. Because we have an answer, and her name is Kamala Harris. And my promise to you is that she will be Madam President Kamala Harris come January 20, 2025. Fellow veterans, hear me when I say it. We must hold the line. We will not go back. We must not waver. We must not fail. We must uphold the oath that we swore to defend all enemies, foreign and domestic. Friends, the enemy is here. It's knocking on the front door of the White House. But I stand here before a mighty, powerful, motivated, angry group of fired up veterans, and I know that we won't let the enemy win. Thank you.
Oh, great. Hey, Russell, you said that much better and louder than I, brother. So I really appreciate the passion and the readiness, the fight in you. And next, I'm gonna turn over to someone. So who's close to me. Actually, he's family. 2008, we came up with this term military families to add on from a campaign perspective. And military families, is defined in a lot of ways. People obviously automatically think of it as, your parents or your siblings, right? Or your spouse, obviously. But military families is expansive, right? It's your cousins, your grandparents, your aunts and your uncles. And many times, those aunt and uncles, those grandparents, those cousins, maybe even the neighbor who lives down the street who's like family. We all have an aunt or an uncle who really isn't our aunt or uncle, right? That the service inspires someone else to do great things or to do service for others. Good example, I got a buddy who's no longer with us anymore, but he applied to West Point because his uncle went to West Point, but he had no other connection to the military than that. And so I want to turn over to my cousin, Mark Batson. He's not a veteran, but he's a military family member, right? He's the family of veterans. And because of the service that our family has given back to this nation since way too long, he has something really cool that he'd like to talk to us about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all the military veterans here for your service. Thank you to your families for allowing me in this space to discuss something that is so important to me. I'm so honored and appreciative to be here. Thank you, Teron, for inviting me. He is a living legend in my family. Thank you for supporting our hero from my school, Howard University, Kamala Harris. My name is Mark Batson. I'm a music producer who has run the music departments for Dr. Dre, produced records for Beyonce, Eminem, Alicia Keys, Jay-Z, India.Arie, Dave Matthews Band, to name a few. It was great to hear Richard Brookshire's comments on history earlier and telling diverse stories in America. So I'd like to start with some thoughts from a historical perspective. Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation to end slavery, but it was the military, the United States Army in particular, who put in the extremely costly work for those freedoms. On June 7th, 1865, 1,500 Black men who were enslaved only 30 days before took to the battlefield in a small town where my grandparents grew up, in a place 40 miles from Monroe, Louisiana, and fought one of the first major battles where African-American soldiers fought for their freedom and their victory in this battle of Milliken's Bend. In many ways, this was the battle. This battle was one of the beginnings of the Constitution becoming real for all Americans and the beginnings of freedoms for all. So this moment is so important to me. I'm developing a movie about it, this pivotal moment in history, as I'm driven to tell these stories. So today, I clearly see that freedoms for all and basic rights for liberty and the pursuit of happiness are being questioned and challenged. We've all seen with our own eyes the Constitution being attacked. And that's why I'm here to show my support for Kamala Harris, because this is one of the most crucial elections in American history. This is a fight for human rights. The Trump administration is denying Project 2025, but the objectives of the Heritage Foundation are very clear. End affirmative action, in Black community-based social programs, ending the teaching of Black history in schools, and ending all diversity corporate programs. My family is from St. Joseph's, Louisiana, and my mother spent her early life as a sharecropper picking cotton. In these days of her youth, the Civil Rights Act had not been passed, and these were dangerous times for her and her family. I'm not a veteran myself, but 5 of my uncles served in the military and paved the way for my family to escape the oppressive culture of Southern Louisiana in the 1950s and early 1960s and build great lives in America. For that, I am extremely thankful and celebrate the great troops of our military. That includes my cousin, Teron Sims, on this call, who's a graduate of West Point and, again, a living legend in our family. The importance of the Supreme Court is integral to the basic functions of American life, and that in its core must be protected and will be protected by Kamala Harris. Our future is paved in pathways of laws adjudicated in the Supreme Court, and no one is more committed to protection of the Supreme Court's vital mission than Kamala Harris. As an alumni of Howard University, I appreciate and am ecstatic about the $11.6 billion the Biden-Harris administration has invested in historically Black colleges and universities. I'm ecstatic about the appointing of Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. I'm ecstatic about executive orders protecting reproductive rights. I'm overjoyed about more people having health insurance than ever before in American history. I'm inspired by the first meaningful gun violence reduction legislation in 30 years. And as a music producer who's worked with Snoop Dogg, I'm ecstatic about the Biden-Harris administration ending America's failed approach to marijuana. The election is in defense of basic human rights. It's clearly in defense of the Constitution itself. It's also in defense of the freedoms that we all share. It's a defense of the progress made by my grandparents, my parents, my family members who built great lives in the military of the United States, which is the greatest military in the world. This election is in defense of us, our children, our futures. So I'll be making music. I'll be out there making advertisements. I'll be looking for votes. I'll be making music videos, and they all will say, elect Kamala Harris for president of the United States. She is the absolute best we have to offer now, and we really have no other choice. She's the absolute best choice for us, and we will win. We will be victorious. Thank you so much for allowing me this time to speak. Thank you again.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Love you, man.
Love you, brother.
Thanks for your message to us. And I believe I'm still up next too, right? So introducing a friend, I don't want to steal her thunder. Our relationship is such, just like anyone else in the military. The military is a very, very, very small community and family, as you know. And sometimes you can meet someone and have a 5-minute conversation the Roosevelt Room and in the Oval Office with President Obama and discover that you're much more connected than you knew. And so from there, I will hand it to my dear friend, Karen Meredith. Take it away, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so pleased to be here. I am the proud Gold Star mother of First Lieutenant Ken Ballard, Army, 1st Armored Division. So shout out to all of you guys out there. 20 years ago on Memorial Day, my son was killed in Najaf, Iraq. And he was a 4th generation Army officer, and he was my only child. I bleed Army green, and that's why I am very proud to be on this panel this afternoon. I would like to share a couple personal stories about Vice President Harris and President Biden. My son is buried at Arlington, so every day, every Memorial Day, I'm out there. I'm from California, so I'm a little bit more familiar with Kamala Harris than many of you are. As our AG, she steered our state right. 4 years ago, another organization did a campaign for Memorial Day, and Kamala Harris actually honored my son. And little did I know that 4 years later that she would be up for president. So I'm proud that she spoke my son's name, which means he will not be forgotten, and that she's going to be our next president. With Vice President Biden and Dr. Jill, what you may not know is a lot of the president or many members of the military, senior members of the military, come out to Arlington and they visit with the families who are there on Memorial Day. Vice President Biden and Dr. Jill stood at my son's grave with me, both of them holding a different hand, and asked me about my son. This was in 2014. 1 year later, on May 30th, their son, Bo, was killed or died from his burn pit illness. So what I'm saying here now is that the Bidens and the Harris and Kamala Harris take this personally. They know that the families serve. And for all of you families who are still on the line, you serve too. Your voice is so important that people know that how the president affects all of our lives. When, excuse me, when my son was killed, the Army told me that I would always be a part of the Army family. And so being able to be on this phone call today makes me feel like I'm still welcome. And I would like to continue my son's service by helping to elect our next president. So I appreciate the time. Families, get in there, do something. One thing that I haven't heard mentioned is that register to vote. You know, some states are pulling a lot of shenanigans about voter registration. So check the status of your voter registration. And also, if you've moved, as we all have, make sure that your registration needs to be up to date. So make sure you check on your state and check on your actual registration status. You don't want to end up going and having difficulty voting on November 5th. So thank you all. Good to see you, Tehran, and all the other people. Thank you. Let's get this done.
Thanks very much, Karen. Really appreciate it. Go ahead, Tehran.
No, you're good. Thanks, ma'am. I really appreciate it. Great seeing you.
Tehran, you're going to introduce Jimmy?
Yeah, I guess I will. I wasn't looking at the other runner show. Jimmy, I think Jimmy might be the youngest speaker today. So he'd be the one cutting the cake with maybe Charlie. Charlie might be the oldest vet. Um,
All right.
we'll find out next. Go on, Jim. Introduce yourself, brother.
All right. Well, I'll be able to eat the cake too because I'm,
That's
I'm
true.
young enough to take all that in and work it off. Folks, Teron, thank you for putting this together. Pat and so many others that I saw on the line today have me fired up. I heard a whole sermon from Jolly. So Jolly, thank you. We'd take you down to South Carolina at the AME Church and have you join the pulpit and tell us about Kamala Harris and some of the work that the Biden-Harris administration has done. So what I'll start with here, right, is my story and my why, and some of the work that I've done, right? So my most recent job was working in the Biden-Harris administration. I worked at the White House, working for President Biden and Vice President Harris to make sure that we had a liaison, a point of contact, someone who was the face for our veterans and our military families, our caregivers and our survivors, our whole community, who folks have looked to this Biden-Harris administration for support, for a voice, to be that voice for change. And in the Biden-Harris administration, so many things we were able to get accomplished. Had over 25 bipartisan bills that impact veterans, our service members, our caregivers, and our survivors. We talked about the PACT Act, the largest expansion of veteran care and benefits in over 30 years. These are significant accomplishments, and we've seen so much more. But sometimes it doesn't always start with the accomplishments. It starts with your heart. And that's what I want to speak from today. I'm a kid from South Carolina. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. I didn't know much about his service when I signed up. I signed up in 2008, literally a month after Barack Obama was elected. And I served. I went on active duty as an enlisted member and did my service all the way to E5 and then crossed over and became an intelligence officer. But during that time span, I was on active duty literally through 3 election cycles, 3, right? 2008, I had just joined. 2012, I was active duty. 2016, I was active duty. 2020, I was on active duty. And so when I come to the folks on this call, which I know we've got over 1,000 now, there are some service members who are still serving to this day, who are going in, putting their boots on, putting their uniform on, cutting their hair and their beard. In the Air Force, sometimes we get a pass on the beard part. But folks who are waking up and serving every single day and trying to figure out, why should I get involved in the political process this election cycle? And I'll tell you, there are many, many reasons, right? But one that I want to speak to today, and it is that I am a father of 2 beautiful children. And when I look at them in 15 years, and I talk to my daughter Jocelyn and my son Liam, Jocelyn's right behind me, I want to be able to tell them that I didn't sit on the sidelines. I didn't stand idly by while our country slipped towards this divisiveness and destruction that could take place under another term, under a Trump administration, a Trump-Vance administration. I won't sit idly by when we see things like Project 2025 that is going to slash veteran care benefits across so many different things, right? We've seen folks, we have public servants right now in the Biden-Harris administration that are working tooth and, day in and day out, right? They are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into policy that can be hardwired to take care of Black vets, take care of LGBTQ plus vets, take care of vets who want access to education benefits and want things fixed on the benefit side, right? We have so many things that folks have done in this administration, and a Vice President Harris and a soon-to-be President Harris is going to deliver on so much more. She's going to work on things, on education, things that we care about in my generation, right? I'm a millennial. So, I care about student loan debt, rising student loan debt that impact families, that impact our ability to take care of our seniors, right? There are so many things that we have to work on. I know Vice President Harris has a team around her. I know her team. She has an incredible team around her of folks who know what young people like myself young folks all across this country want. She's speaking to that. She spoke to it recently. She talked about freedom, opportunity, and justice. These are the things that speak to the heart of what young people and our veterans, our service members, our caregivers, our families, our survivors want each and every day, and think about each and every day. So I'm urging you to get mobilized, get fired up. We have someone who is going to speak to our community, and we are looking to each and every one of you to play a role. You know, whether it's a clipboard, whether it's talking to another veteran or a service member and reminding them that the polls are open, or reminding them to go and register and vote. Each and every one of us can play a role in saving our democracy. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for everyone who organized this. Naveed, amazing. Go Air Force. We usually beat Navy and Army, so I just want to leave it there, and I'll yield the floor.
I know that's right.
Hoorah, hoorah, Air Force.
All these non-grads.
Go Army.
Go to. And that note, let me thanks, Jimmy. Let me introduce you all to one of the baddest dudes I know. Comes from a legit GOTV campaigning perspective. I don't know you all's background when it comes to legitimate grassroots, local jurisdictional campaigning, knocking on doors, making phone calls. But there literally is no one better at this. Now, I'm faster than Charlie, so if we were to have a race on knocking on doors, I'd win. But putting that to the side, there is no one better at this GOTV thing than Charlie Conrad, Senior Chief, United States Navy, retired. Take away, Charlie.
Hey, thank you, Tyrone. Hello, everybody. Great program today. My name is Charlie Conrad. I'm the chair of the Veterans and Military Families Caucus of the Democratic Party of Virginia. I took office in July of 22, and we have been doing some great grassroots activism ever since. I served 20 years in the Navy. I retired as a surface warfare qualified senior chief quartermaster. I served on 5 different ships. And I got out of the Navy in September of '99, and 4 months later, I was involved with my first political campaign. I was down in Virginia Beach for Gore 2000, and I've been doing it ever since. And I got my grassroots training during the Obama campaign in 2008, and I found out that I was one of these people that like to knock on doors and talk to voters, and I think that's where we win elections. And just this past weekend here in Virginia, we had this massive weekend of action, and people were so glad to see us coming down the street with our Harris emblems on our shirts and ball caps and knocking on doors, and we are excited. I could share bunches of stuff with you, but I just want to share a few things here. Friends, we are being called back to duty to preserve, protect, and defend this democracy that we all know and love. And we need, from the bottom of our hearts, we need to talk to our neighbors and families and friends about how important this election is. We need to affiliate with our local Democratic parties. We need to affiliate with our state Democratic parties. And we need to suit up and show up to campaign events that are already in place and get active and be part of what we can do to win this ticket in whatever state that you're in. Because, you know, when we talk to our neighbors and families and friends, we are validating what they know in their heads and in their hearts. They know what we're saying is true. So if we validate to 10 people and ask them to validate to 10 people, next thing we're validating all across the Commonwealth of Virginia already, but we're going to be validating all across the United States just about how important this is and how important it is that we make sure that we elect Kamala Harris as our next as our next president. And as a retired Navy enlisted man, senior chief petty officer, I will give a proud salute to Kamala Harris as my commander in chief. I'm going to pass on with that. Tyrone, thank you for the opportunity to share today.
Thanks, Charlie. I was on mute. Really appreciate that, sir. He does a weekly coffee talk or so. We're going to put the link in there. So any tidbits and things on becoming a master of knocking on doors and stuff like Charlie does, he'll be able to share that with y'all. And so we're in the home stretch. Whether that's good or bad depends on how you define it. I have been sitting in this chair for a while, so maybe it's good. I'm going to introduce you all to Mike Smith. He's super retired because he sometimes doesn't like being referred to by his rank. And we joke about that a lot. What's great about Mike, and obviously he'll get into it, is in this work, there are various facets of resources that we need in order to be successful in getting our candidates elected to office. Right? We mentioned knocking on doors, right? We mentioned fundraising, we've mentioned messaging, and we mentioned policy. You also need validators, right? Sometimes you do need validators who can talk to the average person, and that person can look at that validator and say, oh, you're right. I should vote for that person. And that's a place where Mike really helps us out when it comes to electing good Democrats to office, at least in my capacity. So, sir, take it away.
Thanks, Tron. I think you just finished what I was going to say. So thank you all. Hey, please, I know it's late. I just want to take a few minutes to tell you about my organization. So I'm representing National Security Leaders for America. We're an all-volunteer organization. We're all retired admirals and generals and senior enlisted and their spouses, cabinet secretaries, service secretaries, ambassadors. We stood up initially in 2020 as National Leaders for Biden. We thought we'd be done after the election. Like you, we saw the election deniers. We saw what happened on 6th January. We saw Trump didn't go away. So we rebranded. We're National Security Leaders for America. And our mission is to defend democracy. So we see that Trump is an existential threat to democracy. If he returns to the Oval Office, he will undermine all the freedoms all of us swore to defend. We have almost 800 members right now, almost 300 admirals and generals and senior enlisted, almost 24 stars. All of us believe that the oath we took remains valid, and Trump is a threat to that. And Kamala Harris is the only person that can be back in that Oval Office. So I just want you to know that we exist. We're going to leverage the credibility of our members to get the voices out there, to influence undecided voters, influence veterans, influence national security leaders. We've got an amazing communications team with a bunch of volunteer comms experts that can write op-eds and get our folks on TV. But I want you, everyone here today, to understand that we also want to support you. If there's some way that one of our members, if you want to have a former Secretary of the Navy, you wouldn't want a Secretary of the Army. If you want a former Secretary of the Navy, or you want a retired general or an ambassador to be at one of your functions, let us know. We've got state teams in all of the battleground states. We also support pro-democracy candidates that are going against MAGA opponents in key campaigns. So we have state teams in other states as well. But if we can work with you, if there's some way we can support you, just let us know, because that's why we're here. And all of us are dedicated to that mission. We all have to get Harris in the office and make sure Trump does not return. Just as a final sidebar, that there is this ethic that retired admirals and generals shouldn't be speaking. That is wrong. There are, like I said, there's almost 300 of us, and we believe that we have an obligation to speak out. So if you know of retired admirals and generals, E7s and E8s, please send them our way. We are going to sign an endorsement letter. In 2020, we had 780 people sign an endorsement letter, made all sorts of press, never been done before. We have to beat that number, and I could use your help if you can send people send people our way. So thank you very much. I know it's late. Tyrone, this is absolutely amazing. Thank you for your leadership here tonight.
Thanks for joining us. Patrick, off to you, brother.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it. And you heard me earlier, if it's anything to deal with Pennsylvania, the Army, or my brothers and veterans, I'm just pumped. So this next great American is based out of Philadelphia, career naval intelligence officer. I used to be with MSNBC. I'm now at Fox, but on MSNBC, he's a chief counterterrorism office. Please get up to great American, Malcolm Nance. Malcolm, turn it over to you, brother.
Patrick, you might have to share some more stuff about Army in Pennsylvania because Malcolm is not here. Oh, there he is. Okay.
I'm here. It's just pressing all those buttons, too many moving parts. Hey, I am so glad to be here, and I'm glad to be picking up the tail end of this because nothing is better, nothing is more important than we veterans coming together and supporting the next president of the United States, which is now currently Vice President Harris, who we will elect President Harris. As you guys know, you might remember me from MSNBC. I was Naval Career Cryptologic Intelligence. I was MSNBC's intelligence and counterterrorism analyst for 7 years. And I left that position to go help fight for democracy. I left to go join the Ukrainian army, and I was in the Ukrainian army for over a year. So there are many issues which are very important to me. But the most important is that my family has served over one.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're sideways, my friend.
Man, brother.
But there you go. All right, you're good now. Sorry,
am I straight now?
Yes, sir. Now you're good.
Okay, everybody. That's just I normally have a team do this for me. So, but as I was saying, my family, the Nance family, has served almost continuously for 152 years of military service. The last 5 years, we've had a little gap since my niece retired from the Navy, but we have a fair share of half Army. 1864 to 1944 was Army, and then my father from 1944 on. Everybody in the Nance family has been Navy, so it makes Army-Navy Day really hard. So I just cheer for both teams. But let me take you on to a more serious note. Some of you might recall that just before or just 4 days after the 2020 election, I was on Real Time with Bill Maher. And Bill was trying to come up with the whole Biden has won, kumbaya, how do we reach out to the other side? And I predicted quite accurately that we were not going into kumbaya, but we were going into insurgency and insurrection. I wrote a whole book about this since that time. And now I want to talk about something that's very important that all of us as veterans, military families, spouses, family members, whatever have you, you really need to pay attention to. There is an enormous disinformation war going on, not just about the vice president, but about you, about every one of you as veterans and military families who support the Democratic Party, or if you're like me, I was a former Republican for years until I started listening to what they were saying. It is very important that you understand there is a machine arrayed against you right now. I do extremist studies all day. I monitor right-wing extremist websites. I track militia groups. And there is a factor that we all need to take into account. Some of you have already experienced this. One, which I call bad, is veteran versus veteran warfare that is being waged in social media. One military wife earlier, God bless him, said that her husband was a sergeant major in a special forces unit, and that you would suppose that they would not be voting for a Democrat or supporting someone like Kamala Harris. This is a misnomer which has allowed the Trump the Trump team and his supporters to literally seize veterans' issues, even though they fully intend to dismantle the veterans program and believe that their military, the military, especially special operations, is on their side, and that we as veterans don't count at all. I just saw an engagement the other day that took place with a former Navy SEAL who is a liberal. We literally had people in special operations claiming you are no longer considered as part of SOF. You are, with the enemy. Veterans versus veteran warfare is a very real thing. I know, Fred Wellman and I have been attacked many, many different times. It's important that you come out hard and strong against anyone that attacks a fellow veteran. The key thing that we need to do is use a psychological warfare weapon we used in counterterrorism we call the weapon of doubt. You need to make the ideology of your opponent questionable. And the way that you do that is you don't question their service, you don't question their honor, you question their commitment to their oath. And do they take the oath seriously? General Milley himself said it very early on. At the end after January 6th. We do not swear an oath to a man. We do not swear an oath to a king. We do not swear an oath to a monarch or a tyrant or a wannabe dictator. We swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States. Every time I see someone engaged in veteran versus veteran warfare, I remind them of what the oath
Who
is.
is a member of Congress for Orangevale, California?
Okay, someone's got their mic open. So, next thing that's worse, the Trump team in Project 2025 fully intends to weaponize the U.S. armed forces and the intelligence community against the American public. I've worked in signals intelligence for NSA. I've worked in human intelligence for other agencies. The worst thing that you could have happen is those organizations be turned inward on the American public. They're talking about putting that loser, Kash Patel, right? This guy was an intern under Michael Flynn, went over and started dumping secrets at the White House. They're talking about making him director of CIA or director of national intelligence. You need to be prepared to push back anytime you have people saying, we're going to use these resources against the Americans. Remember, it is about honor and remembering your oath. Worth, I have seen in many, many circumstances. In my last book, which I wrote about Americans preparing to kill each other, many, many, many veterans on the opposing side talking about using force and killing other Americans. Another thing, you cannot allow this kind of talk in social media to go by without you, as a veteran or military family, pushing back hard against that. Remember your own oath. We are here to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. I'm a shouty senior chief. I will never not stop being a shouty senior chief. Okay? But it is incumbent upon all of us to know that it is not just an election we're in. We are now in a war to save the soul of the United States. I'm from Philadelphia. I take this very personally. Okay? I am an originalist in what this nation was set up for. And when my great-great-great-grandfather and his brother and my great-grandfather and his brother and my grandfather and his brother in World War I all went off to various wars knowing they would barely be treated as human, they did it so each of us could advance our nation just that much further towards a more perfect union. So last thing I'm going to ask you to do, I now have a 7-foot Veterans for Harris banner that's going to be put up in my giant front lawn in my red area that I live in, and I'm going to adorn it with American flags on both sides. We need to take back the patriotism of veterans. Carry those flags out there. Let's not give it to them. There was a Trump parade in my town just yesterday where they had the trucks and the banners doing the ISIS thing. I have my flags going up now to show we are all Americans and we have more in common than our differences. But we must win this election to save this nation. So thank you guys for inviting me to this. I found another organization I have to join, the National Security Leaders. I am here to help any of you. If you want me, just reach out to me at any time. I'm with you, brothers and sisters.
Thanks, Malcolm. Great to have you.
Hey, Malcolm, I appreciate you stepping up and shooting me that note yesterday so we could throw you in here. And appreciate you.
All right.
helping us get the blast out. To the next time, we're gonna triple, quadruple this number. This is the first time.
All right, my pleasure.
Patrick, take us home, brother.
All right, well, listen, Malcolm's a hard one to really follow, but I think all of you know it does come down to what he said. We've all taken an oath, that sacred oath, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So we need to get after it. This is not going to be easy. Some days will be good days, some days will be bad days, but we have to keep getting after it, keep doing what we got to do, raise money, give money, knock on doors, write emails, write social media posts, and work as a team. And most importantly, amplify each other's voices, making sure that, hey, I know during this call, I was on my social media at Patrick Murphy PA. I was trying to highlight other folks real quick in between speakers because I was taking notes, but we're a family. We're in this together, and we really appreciate it. I know I said in the beginning, I do think it needs to be said once again. Tehran and Sue, thank you for your leadership. Dan Coons, thank you for your leadership. Mashari, thank you for yours. And all of you on this call. I know we went a little over, so we're going to keep it short and sweet, but we have 100 days. Yes, lots of momentum. $200 million raised in 7 days. 170,000 volunteers. But we need to go. The most well-respected profession in our country is an American veteran. They are more likely to be independent. And this race is going to come down to swing voters and independents. So we got a long way to go. We got a lot of work to do, but we have to get after it. Kamala Harris has spent decades of her life keeping our family safe, and she is uniquely qualified, and she has earned the right to be our next commander-in-chief. So let's get after it. As Wes Moore said, the time is now. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. God bless.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Great to have you all. Still got almost 1,000 people on the call, and I know you all are fired up. So the links are in the chat for all of them, whether you want a t-shirt or to donate or sign up for a volunteer shift, please do so. Thanks again to our amazing panel and all of the whole team that was in the background helping out today. This has been great.
To any alibis, I want to make sure if you have shirts, they come in medium because I got to show these guns off.
Medium. Those this tiny t-shirts, Patrick. Jesus.
I hear you, Fred. Fred, you're not on mute, Fred. See you, everybody.
We're not shopping.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, y'all take care. See y'all.
Oh, but you gotta get up out of here. Have a good night.